Hey everybody, tonight we're debating divine hiddenness, and we are starting right now with our Christian apologist and guest, Stuart Knechtle, on the right side of your screen. Thanks, Stuart, for being here, and the floor is all yours.
Appreciate you having me on, James. David, looking forward to this. You picked the topic, and it's a good one. I actually really enjoy a topic like this because it gets you actually into scripture. Last time I was on here with Dilahante, we had a similar type discussion in terms of getting into actual scripture, knowing what and who the biblical God is. What does he call us to? And something like divine hiddenness makes you really search and look into why would he call us to say, talk about parables, actually see what he's trying to teach us, his son Jesus, through parables. Why is he so hidden? Is that moral? Is that immoral? And so for me, thinking deeper into this tough topic, it's definitely one of the tougher ones for me when I came to faith and struggled with doubt, but then moved out of doubt and definitely still struggle with, let's just say, micro doubts. But this is one of the toughest ones next to, say, suffering and a few of the other biggies. But the way I think through this one would be one, asking the question, who really is, say, a God worthy of worship? You have to wrestle with that one, because if you have a God that's based out of, say, moral therapeutic deism, which is kind of the top type of understanding God for high schoolers and college students right now, it is the therapist type God, the armchair type therapist who is going to say, every little need, every little desire, every little want you have, I am here for you. And then the deistic part is he's far off, though. We can't really, I mean, Jesus is my homeboy. Jesus is this kind of, I can have this close relational intimacy with him. No, that's kind of ridiculous. That's absurd. So they leave that out. They call it deism. And then the moral part, they still believe that there's a level of right and wrong, but many of them are relativistic. So they would say, I choose it, you choose it, don't cross my turf, and we're good. Second point would be saving. All right, well, what does that have to do with it? Well, if in order to get through divine hiddenness, you have to take something like the cross offensively. Okay, it's a provocative thought, because many Christians would come into the faith and think, yeah, Jesus just died for my sins and we're all good, right? Like, easy enough, I'm in. Keira Knightley kind of riffed on this one, saying, it'd be so easy to be a Christian. You could just say, I believe, Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, and do whatever you want. Obviously, that's a misinterpretation of many different parts of scripture, the central one being the cross. But she is onto something in the sense of there is this block. And one of the times I was on James's show too, I had two atheists who like both of the guys, but the very first conversation I had with them on their channel, right out of the gate, they said, what's with saving? I hate that idea in the Christian faith, saving. And right there, it tipped me off to, is this more of an emotional issue or is this really intellectual? Because you're talking about, they went on to talk about, slavery and rape in the Old Testament. But this whole saving issue, you can't wrap your head around, well, why does God call us to he is the savior? And like, think AA, for example, a higher power than us, and giving up ourselves, removing our ego. If you can't start there with understanding, is this God truly worthy of worship? Then it's just like this argument, this whole debate, the whole topic just breaks down. So wrestling with that is very important. And that's connected to sin. What is sin? I look at sin as, say, a cosmic breakdown, natural disasters, for example, sociological breakdown, divorce, etc., psychological breakdown, depression, etc. I mean, look into these things, or you look at Sigmund Freud, for example, when he talked about the id, ego, superego. He talked about a dark side. He even called it sin, but he definitely wasn't a Christian. And so I think sin is very important in saying, I need saving, and it needs to be a higher power. And the third point would be, God is not just interested in the business of showmanship. He's not just looking to say, hey, David, hey, Stuart, hey, James, just believe in me. I mean, you don't really have enough, but just believe. Or maybe you do have enough evidence and just believe. No, we know based out of, Numbers chapter 22, Balaam, he got this divine appearance, and yet he didn't believe in the God of Israel. Or you think of John chapter 7 and Jesus' brothers, his disciples saying, come on, get out there, miracle boy from Nazareth. Just show yourself, prove yourself, do some miracles, and everyone will just come to know you. And he says no. Okay, so we get it right in scripture with Jesus' closest friends. Or you look at, for example, the Pharisees, when they're always saying, just give us a miracle, a nice revelation, and we'll believe in you. or the demons, even out of the book of James, for example. They believe in God, we get James saying, and yet, obviously, they're demons for a reason. They don't have a type of saving relationship, trusting relationship with Christ. So all that to say is, it's not about just God existing. Yes, that's a part of it, but way more importantly, it's, do I have a loving relationship with the God of the universe, his son, Jesus Christ? That's what all of Scripture is about in terms of getting at this whole hiddenness thing and overcoming it. And then lastly, the Holy Spirit. I think this is the toughest one for atheists to respond to, but it could also be a cop-out for a Christian. I get that, because a Christian can just say, let me compare my experience versus yours. And, I always have the Holy Spirit experience where, my joy, my happiness, yes, it's a level of conviction at times over what I've done right or wrong. But that type of experience, the elation high that I get from it is way stronger than any type of drug hit I've taken or sexual experience. And so maybe you're just not having this, and maybe you don't have this type of saving faith that I got, and that the Holy Spirit is pouring into my life on a daily basis. But I think it's tremendously important, obviously, because God is not so much about just giving us a bunch of different arguments. Yes, we get out of Romans chapter 1, natural theology, right? Conscience. You can look at Psalm 19, heaven declare the glory of God. So you can think Immanuel Kant. He said, clearly you have beauty in nature, and then we have our conscience telling us what is objectively right or wrong. So that is strong evidence for God. So we have those type of arguments, but that's not really what we're talking about tonight. Instead, it's the vast majority of people I know, even though I'm into apologetics and I love thinking through the faith, the vast majority of people I know and in the world, 34% of the world is Christian. Such a high percentage of that is I've had an encounter with the Holy Spirit. Yes, probably connected to some type of beauty I've seen, or maybe it's special revelation. I read a Bible, or it's through a friend, whatever it might be. But that Holy Spirit experience is oftentimes what people say is, hey, God was hidden to me, but then I had an encounter with the Holy Spirit, and I can't even explain it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I can tell you right now, God is no longer hidden. Those are the points.
You got it. Thank you very much, Stuart. And I want to let you know, folks, our guests are linked in the description. We are honored to have them. And so want to encourage you to give them a friendly welcome, as well as remembering to attack the arguments instead of the person. And so want to let you know, even if you're listening via podcast, we actually put our guest links in the description box for the podcast episode as well, so check them out there. And we're going to kick it over to skeptic, comedian, and actor David C. Smalley. Thanks for being with us. The floor is all yours.
Are you telling me I can't attack Stuart personally? Because that's all I wrote down. Good. I thought this was a roast. I just wanted to make fun of him and his haircut.
That would be way better. Just tee off, dude.
I'm just jealous because you have hair. That's the reality of it.
That's red, though. Don't be too jealous.
Yes, that's true. I think about that when I get down about being bald. I'm like, I could be a ginger. So that's a good thing. No, thanks for doing this, man. This is, I'm looking forward to this. And thanks, James, for having me on. Yeah, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the opening remarks. Like, I feel like a lot of times people start these debates and it's almost like my blog versus your blog, and it gets a little boring and bogged down. So I just want to say a little bit about it and then get into the Q&A and the sort of back and forth discussion, if that's okay with you guys. Look, we've known for a long time that when someone has more power, they tend to have the responsibility, right? Cops are supposed to be held to a different standard, and that's what's kind of going on right now because they have power, they have authority, they have a Batman tool belt full of weapons to hurt us, so they have different rules to play by. We've all said to someone who's leaving the house, hey, wake me up when you get home. Wake me up when the oven goes off. Why? Why do we ask someone else to wake us up? Well, because that person has the power to understand time and space and locations and where things are happening and why. We are literally unconscious at that point. So we're asking the person who is conscious to wake us up. We're asking them because they have the power to know the difference and we don't. So with that power comes that responsibility. And when we ask someone to wake us up, it's because we're acknowledging we don't have the ability to wake ourselves up. And the same is true if there's a God. If there is a God, I know I exist. I don't know if the God exists. But if there is a God, God knows I exist, and he knows he exists, and he also knows what it would take for me to believe in him, yet he does not provide that. So I don't really understand this idea that there is a God who wants a relationship with all of us, yet does not make himself known to all of us. That is a direct contradiction. Now, if the argument becomes, God just doesn't want to know some of you people, God thinks some of you are horrible and wants nothing to do with you, well, then you have you kind of have a better argument, right? That God picks and chooses his favorites. These are my people. These I want nothing to do with. By the way, you could take these as slaves, but don't rule ruthlessly over these special ones. Then it starts to sort of make a little more sense that God doesn't want a relationship with me and Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and millions of other Americans. But if you think about it, those of us with some sort of platform with other skeptics or non-believers, we should be some primary targets, right? If God were to convince Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and Dan Dennett, and I'll throw myself in there, we could really work for the Lord here and convert people by the millions. Yet he's just as hidden as he was when we started this. So in the end, I don't have the power to be blamed for not believing, right? So if I don't believe, it's God's fault. He has chosen not to have a relationship with me because he's the only one that knows for sure we both exist. And if evidence is enough for Lucifer, and if evidence is enough for doubting Thomas, why not me? Why not every atheist watching this right now? I'll stop there for now. I've got some other questions and some other things I want to get into, but at the end of the day, this is directly God's fault because he knows what it would take to convince every single atheist out there that he exists and he is good and he is love, yet he chooses to let people fight and die over who has the better imaginary friend.
Thank you very much, David C. Smalley, for that opening statement. And I want to let you know, folks, we are thrilled. You'll see at the bottom right of your screen, we have many more epic, juicy debates coming up. For example, evil ideas, deplatform them or debate them. That is the title of our debate on Monday that you don't want to miss. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, as it's going to be a great one and you don't want to miss it. So with that, gentlemen, the floor is all yours for the open dialogue. Thanks again for being here.
All right. So, Stuart, I have a question for you, if you don't mind me going first with my question. Does God want to be detected?
Yes. But, I love the term the hound of heaven, because when I see people who've had dramatic life change and so a part of my job is being a pastor. Another part is being an apologist who speaks on college campuses and other platforms. The pastoral side, pastor of a big church, it's a young crowd, but when I'm with a young person dying or an older, because we have some older folks, you often can see with these people when I'm counseling them or with them on their, as they're dying of something like cancer, they'll say, yeah, God has never really shown himself to me. And I don't think they'll go that far to say, it's not like he doesn't want to be detected. But they will say towards the end of their lives, I mean, without fail, I can't think of a single person, and I'm talking non-believers right now who I've kind of counseled, walked through end of life type stuff, where they've said, yeah, I got nothing from God. Absolutely nothing. No supernatural experience. Don't call it God. Call it some type of supernatural higher power. Every single person I've talked to, now they could have just been blowing smoke up my butt and been like, hey, this guy's with me. Let me just be nice to him since he's walking me through this. But it never felt like that. It always seemed genuine, where they had some type of experience where the hiddenness was shaken off. So does that have to do with your question, or what's?
Not at all in the slightest. But I think that that's another issue. I think near-death
Yeah, yeah.
experiences is something we could definitely get into and talk about, as far as why people feel completely relaxed and at peace with death. And there are scientific explanations for that across multiple regions, across multiple religions and different belief systems. So that's not necessarily something that's unique to Christianity. Also, it's very unique that with near-death experiences, you don't have a whole bunch of Muslims seeing Jesus or a bunch of Christians seeing Muhammad, or or Allah. It's or a bunch of Christians suddenly seeing Krishna, or a bunch of Hindus seeing Jesus. You tend to see the God you were taught from age 4 to believe that was the God. So I guess my question was more directly, does God want to be detected? And then the second part is, assuming you say yes, why can't I detect him? And before you say because you're a dirty, filthy atheist with a black heart, you have to include all of those wonderful Christians, which I was at one time, who pleaded and begged and desperately wanted a relationship with God, yet God did not grant that relationship. And I'm talking pastors, preachers' daughters, people who have undergone abuse or rape or cancer or all these sorts of terrible things. When they cry out to God and they beg for God and they want to have that relationship, and he doesn't grant it, yet you say he wants to be detected. Help me tie those together. Why would both of those be happening?
Well, so you could easily make the case then that kind of you started this. It seems like it's tied, but in your opening, when you were talking about it should be this type of general revelation to all, everybody gets an equal shake. I mean, how do we not know that if it's the God of the universe, let's say, I mean, if it's a God who created the universe, he's that big, we would guess his thoughts are a little higher than our thoughts. If that's the case, how do we know he's not coming to us at different times in different ways? That's different from how he comes to other people, where boom, okay, you're just growing up in the faith.
Okay, so that would be like me saying, I'm going to give you a metal detector, Stuart, and I'm going to sneak over to your house and hide things, and you have to find them. And for years, you never find anything. And then finally, you're like, dude, I give up. And I go, everything I hid was plastic. You suck. What? You gave me a brain to detect reality, and then you remain hidden from the very attributes that you allowed me to detect, and then you blame me for not having the right tools? I gave you the metal detector, so you were looking for metal, but then I only hid plastic and then blamed you in the end. And by the way, if you didn't figure out, I'm going to set you on fire. That's a little much, right? And that's why I say it's God's fault. He gave us our detectors and then remains undetectable according to the parameters he set up from a physics perspective within our reality. Yet we're supposed to blame ourselves or say that we're not good enough, or we're broken, or we didn't pray hard enough, or we're sinful, or for whatever reason we're not worthy of God's presence when he's the one creating the rules. It just doesn't make sense.
Okay, you had a lot there. Let me go back to 2 minutes ago with what you said. One, this is like keeping them honest on a sports show. I know you've got the celebrity stuff going on, so maybe you'll appreciate this, maybe not. When you said that Jesus is not popping up in other religions, there is a mass movement right now to Muslims, where Muslims are having dreams in Saudi and the Middle East where they're seeing Jesus and coming to know him. And the crazy part about that is, Muslims, especially in the Middle East, they would never become a Christian unless they had some type of crazy experience. And so I've read all these studies, and still I was like not convinced. I was like, okay, yes, it seems like there's a ton of evidence for this. Then I had a couple buddies who are actually over there, and I was friends with them in seminary, and they said, this is happening, and the type of revelations that these Muslims are getting by the thousands is just insane, where they never had any type of encounter with this white, blue-eyed, 6'2" American Jesus, and yet all of a sudden they come to this faith because they have this encounter with this Jesus who comes to them, who obviously is not white and 6'2" and an American Jesus, but who they actually go to the Bible and want to find out about. So that gets to part of your piece. And then you brought up kind of the genetic fallacy, where absolutely where we're born, where, you know, what kind of faith we're born into. Certainly that has a lot to do with whether we head down that trajectory or not. But that type of reasoning has just as much to do with the atheists as well. I mean, there's a reason why 70% of atheists in the US are white males, right? And there's a reason why so many people, just with that type of thinking that says that there's a genetic fallacy, I mean, that's very white Western thinking. People are not saying that in other cultures, right? So there's genetic fallacies, and there's those types of misfirings and thinking all over the place. But to get to your most recent point, David, I would say, I mean, again, those are good examples you brought up and illustrations, but that could be easily connected to the whole point of, like, if the God of the Bible took the approach of Zeus or any of the ancient Greek gods, where it's just this type of power, I'm going to lord it over you, you better appease me, or I'm going to smite you on the spot. I mean, you're going to worship that God based out of tremendous fear, are you not? And so if the God of the Bible took that approach, it would be the exact same thing. And I see this over and over again, even in my church, where the meritocracy that goes on is scary when it comes to believing in God. I mean, a guy said over Christmas, he was dead serious. He said to his family members, he said, yo, let's get some life insurance. Let's go to church. Just this Christmas time, that's it. And the whole thing there is, it's fear. It's fear. Like, what if there could be a God? I need to be able to get in. Versus the biblical God, which is, if I were you, I would not have been so much praying towards, I got to get to God, but God, just reveal yourself to me. And maybe you were doing that. But instead of me trying to chase after God, asking God to come to me, reveal himself in a way where we can build a relationship, not just some kind of type of just, I want to just know you exist.
We don't know. We don't know what the magic words are. Nobody, God knows. So back to my metal detector analogy. If I said I was designing a game and I said, I'll give you $1 million if you detect whatever. And if you don't, I'm going to shoot you or set you on fire. And I give you the metal detector and say, I want you to find the things. And then all I ever hide is plastic, but I never reveal that to you. Would you think that I wanted you to succeed in the game?
Okay, so it sounds like a cosmic bribe kind of thing. It sounds like all stick, no carrot. I heard you say set you on fire.
I want you to directly respond to what I said, though. If I gave you a metal detector, but only hid plastic, and then you had this horrific punishment if you don't get it right, and later you find out that I was hiding plastic the whole time, but I gave you a metal detector, would you think that I wanted you to succeed?
No, not at all.
Okay, that's how it feels. That God does not want a relationship with us, because that's all we have is the metal detector, Stuart. That's all we really know is how we gauge and test empirical reality. And if God is not playing in the realm he set us up to understand, how is it our fault for not detecting him?
Right. And so I hear you say feels, and you don't strike me as the typical type of atheist that I'll debate, who are more of the fundamentalist types, where it's, there is no God and I hate him for it. So it's strictly emotional. You talked about the feelings, and I hate this God right out of the gate because he's all stick, no carrot, and he's going to say, you're going to the lake of fire if you don't believe in me. If you don't believe I exist. Look, I don't want that kind of God. I wouldn't believe in that kind of God. Not a chance. Not even close. Because I think that's manipulation. I think it's coercion. I think talk about slavery. That's the most type of enslavement would just be scary. But that's not what we get in scripture. And I could head so many different directions right now. Can you tell me where my analogy breaks down?
Why is it not the metal detector analogy? Because when I say it feels, I'm not just talking emotional. That's how it is. That's how it's set up. Yeah. Because anytime I have these divine hiddenness conversations, it's always either you're not praying hard enough. You're not living a righteous enough life for God to be worthy for God to show himself or whatever. And the list goes on. It's always me that's broken. It's never the responsibility is on God. So if he doesn't want atheists to succeed in building that relationship, how is it our fault when he's the only one that knows we both exist for sure? Like, I don't understand how the onus is on the atheist to know a God that is undetectable according to the attributes and detectors that God gave us. So how does my analogy not fit there?
No, it's right in line with what David struggled with, what Job struggled with, what Thomas struggled with, what Peter struggled with. Divine silence is a very scary thing, and it seems very unfair. I totally agree with you 110%. You know, when my uncle, who is head of transplant surgery at Duke, when his only daughter was killed in a car accident, he went straight to Psalm 88 because it ends with darkness is my only friend. And he said that was the only place out of any piece of literature or anything anybody could ever tell me that gave me solace. Darkness is my only friend. And so the reality of God not speaking when evil and suffering occurs, you can't say that's not a reality when you're reading the Bible. Absolutely is. And there's so many fundamentalist Christians who would cover that up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a total joke.
I appreciate you acknowledging that. That's great.
So that gives me, I truly believe, if you look in the Psalms, for example, God totally understands how we speak when we are desperate, and he allows it to happen. So if you look at David literally cursing at God and then being called the man after God's own heart, that's pretty crazy. And he's cursing him for silence in the face of suffering. So dealing with that has always been helpful for me when I've struggled with doubt and felt like, hey, God, what's up? I'm living a pretty good life here. I'm chasing after you. There's nothing tangible about this relationship whatsoever. It feels like a door has just been slammed in my face, especially when I'm going through tough times. What's the deal? But then if I go into the Psalms, if I go into Job, if I go into any number of the disciples who struggled when Jesus died on the cross and he disappeared and left them disillusioned, then all of a sudden I can dig deeper into, wow, maybe God functions in a way that's slightly different in terms of how he shows himself to us.
Yeah, slightly different, but that slightly different is actually undetectable to our detectors that he gave us. So do you think God wants a relationship with everyone? And if the answer is yes, which I assume it is, why did he give us the metal detector and only hide plastic?
So the only way I can answer that question is if I know where you're coming from and asking that, with the question of what kind of evidence would you want? And then what do you think this type of saving faith is? So evidence, what kind of evidence would you want? I don't think you're purposely moving the goalposts. You don't seem like that kind of guy to me. Many atheists like that, and I'm sure many Christians. But what kind of evidence would David want? And then secondly, I mean, what even is faith? Again, are you just operating out of just God existing? And man, that gets me into heaven? Or is it something more?
I don't know what evidence I would want, but God does if he exists, which is my entire point, is that he has all the information. He's the one that's awake. And all I've said is, hey, wake me up because I'm going to be unconscious and I'm going to need you to wake me up. And he's just letting me sleep with the oven on. He's letting me sleep through the alarm going off. He's letting me sleep and miss modern day debate. And he's just not he's not waking me up for anything. Yet blaming me for not being wake-upable. Am I not good enough to be awakened? Why? Is something wrong with me? So the person with the awareness should have the ability, right? We've all taken care of a drunk friend, right? We've all made sure they fall asleep face down, right? We understand that the person with the wherewithal has the ability to control the situation and should do good by those things to help other people out. Yet God, again, gives us this metal detector, shows up in plastic, and then blames us for not having the right tools. I don't know what it would take for me to believe in a God, but if God exists, he does and still hasn't shown it to me. I'm not an angry atheist. I don't hate any God any more than you could hate a leprechaun, but I just don't see the evidence to believe in a God that would give me tools to detect him, remain undetectable, and then punish me for eternity for not detecting him according to the game exactly how he set it up. That's not my fault.
I totally get that. And thanks for your vulnerability there. I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I rarely hear atheists say that sort of thing. I would make 2 points there. One would be, well, more than two. One would be saving. Do you have a problem with needing to be saved? Like, if you were to go into AA, could you be like, yeah, I see myself here. I'm not an alcoholic, but I know I struggle with other things, and I need a higher power to save me. I can't save myself. Because a lot of atheists would say that's absurd. One atheist said to me, he said, hey, I like this Christianity thing. Like, I want to go to church. I hear it's good for you. I saw the Harvard study recently. It's good for you psychologically, relationally. I think I might become a Christian. And I said, okay, yeah. So here's how it goes. And when I got to the whole sin piece, he said, whoa. What are you talking about? I've never sinned my entire life. It was dead serious. And I said, are you sure? Are you sure you've never made one little sin? And he said, all right, I yelled once at my wife, and they've been married like 35 years. And so I think the misconception of sin, what is saving? Again, if we don't start there, that's the whole biblical God. Like, if we want to debate over Zeus or Allah even, that's a totally different discussion. But if you don't start here, then that's an issue. And then the second point would be, I almost think you're a Christian. And I don't want to put that on you. I don't want to put words in your mouth here. I don't want to be disrespectful.
Okay.
But you almost sound like a Christian and what I mean by that, in the sense of, not that you could be angry. You could be angry, and that's fine. But with how much you're talking about the searching, it almost sounds like you're currently still searching in some ways. Maybe not currently, but definitely searching in the past. And it sounds like searching in the present. Like, how do we know that you're not a Christian then? I don't want to sound universalistic. I don't want to sound like one of these powder puff liberal universalistic Christians. That's not what I'm trying to do right now. But I don't believe you can't look at scripture univocally. See, a lot of Christians will go to, clearly it says in 1 John that unless you bend the knee and confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord, you're not going to heaven. But then hold on here. What about Hebrews 11, where there's so many people, Abraham, et cetera, who have not even heard of Jesus yet are going to be in heaven? Or Romans 2, general revelation, where you don't even know what Paul is talking about here. It almost sounds like a type of universalism where it's God's judging hearts.
And according to Matthew 7:21, there will be a lot of people who bent the knee, yet still not into the kingdom of heaven because
that's exactly right.
So yeah.
Totally. And so, and that's why you have in like Matthew 25, the whores and the whoremongers and the tax collectors get into heaven ahead of you, Jesus says to the Pharisees. And I think that's connected again to this very topic that we're talking about right now, which is this whole tricky dynamic of what is grace. And it's not the Keira Knightley understanding of cheap grace. What is grace that is actually going to change hearts? And I think we're struggling with this right now. You brought up the race issue. You know, you look at Jonathan Haidt, the psychologist out of NYU, and he talks about how we're not just righteous. Every single person, atheist, Christian, Muslim, we're all self-righteous. We all think we're right on everything. And we so rarely doubt our own opinions. It's scary. And so we have this cognitive bias where we're just going out to just back up our own assumptions. And we see this in politics right now. And the reason why I bring that up is because the Christian faith is understanding grace, which is, I do not know everything whatsoever. And God is able to reach any person, no matter what they've done in their life, and change them, and they can get into heaven, even if it's a thief on a cross, even if it's a murderer in prison, whatever it might be. And that's the crazy part. Again, that's him coming to that person in a special, specific way, not in this general way that supposedly he comes to every person in the same kind of way. Because I think if you're going to go there, then the burden of proof switches to the atheist. If it's everybody has to come to believe God exists and have a type of saving faith and trusting relationship with Jesus in the same sort of way.
That's so funny. I love debating really smart Christians like you, because you, and I don't mean this to be offensive, it's honestly entertaining. Like, you completely avoided answering my actual question, and then somehow called me a Christian, and then put the onus on me to prove that there is no God. And there are a lot of Christians who probably go, "This guy's amazing," and I'm going, "I'm getting nothing here." So
maybe your
I'm gonna try
question
one
was
more
just too
time.
smart for me.
What's that?
Maybe your question was just too intelligent for me. Just right. Maybe that was more.
And that would have been the best answer to my question right there, and we could just move on. The question more directly, and I am interested to know why you think I sound like a Christian. I am interested in that. But let's table that for just a moment. The direct question is, why did God give us the metal detector and then show up in the form of plastic? Why is he not making himself detectable? That's the entire point of this debate. And I think what I've done here is remove the onus from the atheist, because the atheist is, according to Christians, a puny brain human who doesn't understand what's going on. You guys talk about humans like that all the time, right? Oh, God knows so much better than us. God knows so much more. He has the entire universe on his shoulders, but it's your fault, humans, for not connecting with a higher power. Wait. Since when does the tiny, puny brain person get blamed for everything that's happening? That doesn't make any sense, right? So it's kind of Christianity talking out of both sides of its mouth. When it's convenient for you, the human has the responsibility to seek after God. But when it's convenient for the problem of evil or divine hiddenness, then God should come out to the human, but the human must be ready and must understand. It just doesn't work both ways, Stuart. So I'll end it with a direct question that I really want an answer to. Why did God, in accordance with my previous analogy, why did God give us the metal detector and then show up in the form of plastic?
That was the same way. Ask me it in a different way. Because I see what you're saying, but expound even further. Because again, that's not the biblical God. But so that's why I'm saying ask it in a different way.
Okay, so we understand the laws of physics. We see things, we touch things, we have our five senses. Some argue there may be 6 or 7. We smell endorphins that we don't understand. We smell, right? We have these things that are bordering on physical, but we understand the basic properties of physics. Yet God allegedly operates outside of what we can detect and measure. Yet it's incredibly important that we acknowledge and believe in that God, lest we be tortured for eternity, depending on which version of Christianity you ascribe to. So the question is, why would God give us these senses to detect him, make believing in him the single most important thing any human can do, yet remain undetectable according to the tools he gave us?
It's good. Yeah. Okay. So I would say you start with, there is clearly, like you alluded to earlier, a universal hunger for some type of God. Like 98%, maybe it's slightly lower than that, of the world believes in some form of God or higher power. And the issue for me then is obviously, okay, God has shown himself then to a lot of people. And maybe we can get down to, again, it's so case specific, because I'm sure you know some atheists where you'd say, well, obviously that person's so closed off to God, you know, they're so rude and irreverent to anything even remote, however you'd like to put it, that I could see that person, okay, God's not going to really show himself to that person. But me, come on, I'm kind of a nice guy, and I did some searching. You know, I was an altar boy for a little while. Didn't work out too well, but you know, I was looking, and so that sets up this dichotomy all of a sudden of, okay, so who's trying harder? I mean, who's trying harder? Like, I'm a PK. PK, statistically, you're not supposed to be a Christian. You're supposed to be like the most rebellious, self-centered person, which, you know, I struggle with those, but in the world. And so I don't feel like I was given a fair shake. And I don't feel like I've done anything in the sense of like chasing after God in a way to all of a sudden get his favor. No, it all comes back to this freakish nature of what is grace. And that's why you have a Liam Neeson, for example, who can literally look at somebody who's in chains and say, but there for the grace of God go I. I start at this place of, I could be in chains, I could be that prisoner, I could do whatever that prisoner did, but it was God's saving grace that made me who I am today. And so this is back to your whole point of, why am I not good enough? Am I not great enough? What's going on here, God? So that would be one piece. The second piece would be, I do think it has a lot to do with ego and self. Absolutely. When I say ego, I don't mean pride necessarily, or the wide receiver dancing in the end zone. That's not necessarily the type of ego I'm talking about. I am talking about more so, I think Buddhism slightly has it right in the sense of, how do I get out of myself? How do I view myself as almost an illusion because I'm part of the all soul? Obviously, Christianity is different than that. But I agree with that part of Buddhism in the sense of, we do have to get away from simply living for self. And that's why you have the frequent line that I love in Christianity, which is, all you need is need to be a Christian. All you need is need. And so that's why I said, kind of started going down the road of, you might be a Christian because you are saying, I have some needs. And so how do you know God is not, you're not saved? There's a good chance you are saved. And so that's the piece where, versus many other atheists who come storming out of the gates saying, I don't need a God. God doesn't exist. God's a rapist. God is XYZ. Yes, I want to live for myself. I could write a better Bible. If God aligned the stars, like many atheists have said to me, saying, hello, David, trust in me. I created this universe. Somehow come to believe in me. And I say, that wouldn't be enough. I've heard so many atheists say this. That type of irreverence in wanting more evidence, more evidence. Well, how much evidence? I have no idea. Endless amounts of evidence. Well, so how are you ever going to be able to get to the place then of actually saying, I believe in you, God, if there's endless evidence that's never going to convince you?
I never said any of that. I never said there were endless amounts of evidence. I never said if the stars aligned, I wouldn't believe.
No. I said them.
Yeah, all of those are arguments from people that aren't here today.
That's why you're a Christian. Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not a Christian. And it's because I've said that whatever the answer is, God knows, and he doesn't provide it. So how is that my fault? Mm-hmm. God is the conscious one. God is the responsible one. God created the game. Mm-hmm. Another way to put this, let's say there is a football game going on, and you put the guys out there and you make them start playing, but there's no lines on the field whatsoever. You're calling penalties, you're calling them out of bounds, you're saying they didn't get a first down. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. And the ref's just going, you got to have faith. You got to believe. Belief and faith is all up to my own interpretation. And if you set two Christians down long enough, you're going to realize they don't worship the same God. There's going to be a difference where that Christian goes, my God agrees with me on this. And the other Christian is going to go, no. My God agrees with me on this. I've done this for years. And anytime I get two Christians in the same room, at first it seems like it's 2-on-1. Then you certainly find out it's every man for themselves because they're not even worshiping the same deity. When you dive down far enough, everybody's got their own interpretations. So at the end of that football game, nobody knows what the hell's going on. Nobody knows what the score is. To look at the refs and go, you really wanted us to succeed, didn't you? Nobody would believe that. You'd go, no, they didn't want us to succeed. They didn't put any lines out there. We didn't understand the rules when we started. The information got passed down and changed, and nobody knows what the hell's going on. In fact, there's roughly 30 to 40,000 different rule books arguing about the rules, yet it's the player's fault for crossing an imaginary line we didn't know, or we didn't point to the east when we were bowing, or when we died, our feet weren't pointing the right way so we could be resurrected in the coming days. Like, nobody knows what the hell's going on. There's only one that does know, if he does exist. And if that God exists, he's the one responsible for letting us know. He's responsible for letting you know, for letting me know, for letting Harris know, for letting each individual person know. And if he's everywhere all the time, that shouldn't be hard. He could whisper it into my ear right now, whatever it may be. Yet he's the one with the power. but he doesn't do anything about it. I'm the one with the puny human brain, and I get blamed for not forging a relationship with the invisible God that's all powerful that I can't even prove exists. I can't meet you there, Stuart. I can't meet you there and say, yeah, humans are despicable. Humans are the ones at fault for rejecting God. What about those of us who aren't rejecting? What about those of us who are waiting, who have asked for years and years and years for evidence and for proof, and who have dedicated our lives to talking with theology professors and scientists and Christian authors and theologians and preachers and pastors and priests and deacons of all different denominations, trying to get to the bottom of this and seeing contradiction after argument, and all of them are pointing to this unknowable, undetectable being that you say I'm responsible for forging a relationship with. He has the responsibility, Stuart, not human beings. He set up the rules. He gave us the metal detector. It's not our fault. It's just not our fault. If he exists, he doesn't want a relationship with me. He doesn't want a relationship with millions of Christians who have hit their knees and begged for a sign, or begged for the abuse to stop, or begged for the cancer to go away. He has remained hidden from them as well. And they're watching this right now. So what do we say to those people who have hit their knees and who have begged to know God, and he is just as available as Casper the Friendly Ghost? What do you say to those people who have zero evidence for God, and yet by saying they need to be responsible for forging that relationship, you're blaming them? You're victim blaming the person on their knees for not being smart enough to connect with the cosmic invisible deity. How does that make any sense?
Well, okay, so I never said you are fully responsible.
Okay.
You put words in my mouth on that one, because you're right. Some denominations would. That's unfair.
So hold on. So you think God?
Would say that.
So I apologize. So you think that God does bear responsibility in forging a relationship with me?
I think it's free will and God's sovereignty. It's a mix of the two. Has to be. Would example help?
Okay.
Maybe an example would help on that. So throughout Scripture, you get like Acts 26. You get in Hezekiah. You get these examples of where Paul in Acts 26, for example, is shipwrecked. And God says, if any sailor here leaves, you guys are going down. But Paul, you have to keep them on the ship. And so it's this mix of, Paul, you got to do this. But at the same time, I'm going to be working in a way where you're not going to drown, because he follows it up with, you're not going to drown, most likely. And so Paul already knows he's not going to drown. And yet at the same time, you better keep everybody on this ship. Then you have in Hezekiah, this king who gets 15 years added to his life. But God says, I'm going to give you 15 years, but you better bandage your wounds. And so it's very similar to faith in that type of way. It's not, I am totally responsible, God. I have to figure out, I have to play all this crazy chessboard. I have to play it all life long to try and find a way to get to you, and then I will get out of the lake of fire and somehow be on top of this nice, cushy little cloud strumming this nice little harp. It's not that. It's just totally not that. It's God is going to have to meet us. He's going to have to, I believe it becomes way more than just halfway. And then, yes, we need to respond. There needs to be, the God of the Bible, it's clear that he comes to us and then says, you do have to respond, but it's based off of his grace, not our own works, that's going to give us this type of trusting relationship and secure eternity.
Yeah, I don't know how we could accept grace from something we can't even prove exists.
What does that mean? What is grace to you?
Forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it's beyond that. Yeah, it's part of it.
Well, I was just starting, but I'll give you an example. So let's say I'm in charge of 2 children. And the children say, Dad said he wants us to rearrange the living room this way. And the other kid says, no. Dad told me he wants to change the living room this way. No, he wants the couch here. No, he wants the couch here. and I'm standing in the room. Imagine me just standing there, watching them argue. Let's see what turns out. Let's see how this works out. A lot of parents do that. That's fine. But then let's say they started punching each other in the face. They started gouging each other's eyeballs out, pulling each other's hair, setting each other on fire, and I'm still just watching with indifference. When I could easily say, guys, hey, I want the couch over there. He was right. Problem solved. Nah, I'm just going to stand behind the couch, watch them literally kill each other over what I allegedly want, and I do nothing to solve the problem, knowing that solving the problem would keep the peace and let them both know I am there. I am a parent. I am physically involved in their lives, and I care. I saw a meme one time that said, to be a parent, you must make yourself a parent in the lives of your child. APP, a parent. You have to be present in order to matter to your children. You can't just show up when they're 27 and say, damn it, I'm your dad. No. That's got to be earned over time, even though you had the authority originally, even though you assisted in creating that human being. You don't just get authority because of who you are. You've got to be a parent in that person's lives.
Do you really want that parent for eternity, though?
I wouldn't want that parent at all. And that's my point, Stuart.
You want a parent, though?
Is that the God who would just watch with indifference for thousands and thousands of years, people killing one another and throwing homosexual people off of roofs with their hands tied behind their back and burning people at the stake and stoning 13-year-olds to death because they lost their virginity before marriage because they were raped. I mean, the amount of evil that has happened in the world, it's not just that God allows it. It's that he remains hidden behind the couch the entire time as we are out here trying to figure out what's best for humanity. And then the Christian apologist shows up and looks at the person who had their eye gouged out and says, you didn't seek God good enough. It's you. You're the reason that he didn't come solve this problem. Me, the little puny brain human who doesn't understand anything outside what the physics that I can detect, it's my fault? That's like blaming the janitor for the company going under. He doesn't have access to the financial records. He's cleaning the toilet. How is it his fault that the company went under? It's taking responsibility, turning it on its head, and then giving God the glory when something amazing happens, and then blaming the little guy when he never finds God. It should be the other way around. It's God's responsibility to start the relationship because he knows I'm here and he knows what it would take.
And so this gets right into natural theology and arguments for whether there is a God or not. And so I think right out of Romans chapter 1, you get scripture saying conscience within, beauty outside. That's more than enough evidence right there in and of itself to point us to something related to God. I was talking recently with somebody about how all the different psychological studies out there and more books out there, like The God-Shaped Hole, for example, many different books right now, talking about how it is empirical. It's empirically verifiable that kids are born with this innate understanding of a God. And I think right out of the gate there, that's not a way to say automatically, oh, see God's revealed himself, but it certainly says something. And I think what those studies show are connected to exactly what Paul's talking about in Romans, in the sense of conscience, in terms of the sense of general revelation, in terms of the sense of special revelation, which is scripture, the gospels. And I think you have to deal with that. Your illustration's a good one, but now you're putting too much of the onus again on free will, on people. The God of the Bible is not saying that in terms of it's all up to you guys, and you guys are going to burn. I'm throwing you myself right into the lake of fire if you don't believe in me. And you talked about faith, David. Okay, faith is not just this emotional high. It's not like when the Saints won the Super Bowl, how every single huddle that they had was, let's just have faith. Come on, it's sincerity, guys, sincerity. No, pistis in the Bible, you look at, say, Acts 17:31, for example, it's all connected to the resurrection and the proofs that were given, the evidence that was given. And then from that evidence, you measure it up, just like you measure up when you're dating a hot girl. Am I going, or guy, am I going to marry this person or not based off of the evidence I have, and enter, finally, I got to make that leap or not, into a trusting relationship with them. And that's all connected. My final point here, based off of your good question analogy, is Luke chapter 16. We got to talk about hell at some point tonight, because you keep talking about burning and you keep talking about the free will piece, which is legit. You have the rich man and Lazarus. You have the whole point of, why is the rich man's name not given? And that's the only place where a person's name in an entire New Testament is not given. It's because Luke is trying to highlight that this rich man has totally lost his or her, obviously him, his identity. He's just rich man. So he's living for something else. And he was happy, but obviously that's turned him miserable after a while. It wasn't just this lake of fire, but he is miserable. And that's because he said, I don't want anything higher. I certainly don't want a God. I want this wealth that I can see, that I can feel, that gets me something. And it, like C.S. Lewis talks about, it is this eternal grumbling that took place because of his greed, just eventually ate him alive throughout eternity. And so if you notice, he does not want to get out of heaven when you have Lazarus and he's saying, please, Lazarus, go and just tell my brothers and sisters, they don't want to come here. And he says, your brothers and sisters clearly have the prophets and an understanding of the evidence that Jesus rose from the dead. And if they don't believe that, it won't matter. Even if they saw this dead man rise themselves, even if they had this tangible 5 cents connection with him. So it's way more so an identity issue versus, and it gets back to the whole reason behind why do we accept God? First, is it just him existing, or does he want a loving relationship with us? If he was just there in this bald type of power, that sets us up for, I have to fear this God. And there's no legitimacy in that type of loving relationship if I'm just fearing somebody who might smite me. Or it's this ego play of, hey, look, I'm better than you. I believe in this God. I'm getting saved. Look at you, buddy.
Want to jump in?
Okay.
I do want to mention one sec. I'll give you a chance to respond, David, but I do want to mention that maybe now or after your response, David, I know that we had talked about a quick intermission at the hour mark.
Okay, sounds good. So Stuart, real quick on the children being born with some idea of God, right? On that note, let me just ask you this and briefly answer if you have one. When crocodiles hatch out of their eggs and go crawling toward the water, the mother opens her mouth and the crocodiles jump straight in, and she carries them to safety. How do they know that's a safe mouth to jump in? They literally just entered the world out of an egg. The gazelle who drops the baby out, and within 10 minutes, it's standing up and staying really close to its mother. How does it know that that's a safe place to be? I'm honestly asking, do you have an answer for that?
Because of the parent, and they believe the parent brought them into the world. Okay, so then why would they need to believe in a God beyond the parent?
Well, no, hold on. That crocodile who hatches, it just sees an alligator, or it just sees a crocodile mouth there. It could be a predator. It could be a competing male. It could be a competing female. It could be anything that wants to eat them. But it just willingly jumps right into her mouth. How does it know? Would you accept that there's a biological element to creatures recognizing a larger, safer version of itself to go to for comfort?
Sure, definitely.
Okay, so to me, that is exactly the response to children being born with some idea that there is God. And it makes perfect sense why man has created God in his own image. God is a guy, he's a man, he has human form, he looks just like us. We have evolved to the point that we start to realize we have limited time and we're going to die someday. And we have reached a point that we can no longer run to something that's a bigger version of ourselves so we invented it. That instinct that you're talking about in babies is not because there is a God, and it sure isn't evidence of it being a God. It's evidence of evolutionary biology telling us we need to run to something bigger than ourselves that looks like us for safety and support. The last thing I want to say is Tricia replied to our tweet just about 2 minutes ago. And she said, I begged God to reveal himself to me, and honestly sought after him and knocked on a door that never opened. Still open and ready for a revelation to this date, nothing. The ball is definitely not in my court. What do you say to Tricia?
I totally agree with you. Every kind of way.
Well, if the ball is not in our court, it's God's fault because he remains hidden.
You've got to ask the question, what are you looking for? See, I wish I could get an answer out of you, David, tonight about what kind of evidence you're looking for, and what do you want God? How do you want him to prove himself? So evidence and proof.
Answer.
I had a secular Jewish friend who told me incessantly, my secular Jewish friend, really sharp guy, went to an Ivy League. And he said, Stuart, easy. Thank you for asking. If Jesus shows up 5 times a day, every single day, just to me, not to anybody else, just to me to prove himself, I will believe in him. Case closed. Now, so you got to ask. I'm not saying you want that. I don't think you're quite that extreme. But you still have to answer the question, because then we have an idea of what is this? Is this God worthy of worship or not? And what is this evidence and potential proof that he's offering? Tricia, if you want me to answer that, David, I'm glad you asked me to answer. I would simply say, keep asking God to reveal himself to you. And God is not a white male. He's not even a male. He's genderless. But that's a whole nother discussion. Keep asking him to reveal himself to you. The onus is not on you. Yes, you absolutely do. Again, you're asking him, so you are praying. So I guess in that sense, the onus is on you. But you're simply taking one step, frequently asking God, please just reveal yourself to me. I know that this universe did not just come from nothing, come about by accident. I know the natural laws are not just popping up and we're expecting them to be the same every single day. That should not be normal, like David Hume even said. We could go on and on and on. So simply just keep asking, God, please show yourself to me. And I don't feel you. Ask like David did, ask like Job did. The Bible is replete with examples of people who say, God is silent, I don't see him, and yet God always says you are doing the right thing.
Or, Tricia, you could not waste your time and create your own destiny.
That's it. That's it right there. That is the crux of this whole debate tonight. Create your own destiny. Do you want a God who creates your own destiny? I don't think David does. And I don't think that's because he's a bad guy. But I don't think he wants a father figure. And I don't think he wants a displaced identity that's given to him by God. I think he wants his own, and that's legit.
Well, while we're on this little break, I'll be looking for God, and I'll let you know if I find him.
We will take an intermission, and we are excited, folks, as we have maybe a bit more open discussion as well as Q&A coming right up. Do want to let you know a couple of things in particular. Folks, if you haven't heard yet, we're absolutely thrilled for this upcoming debate with Christian apologist Dr. Kenny Rhodes and Matt Dillahunty coming up on June 5th. We're doing a crowdfund to make that event happen. Honorariums for the speakers that we are pumped about as it has been cruising. We've been super excited, and so I want to encourage you. If you've ever found this channel fun, you're like, yeah, it's all right. Consider joining the crowdfund with us. The crowdfund is linked in the description, and that's right below our guest link. So I do want to mention that as well. We are thrilled to have David C. Smalley as well as Stuart here with us tonight. They're linked in the description at the very top of the description box, and that includes, folks, if you are listening to Modern Day Debate via podcast, as we are thrilled, folks, if you haven't yet, pull out your phone, find your favorite podcast app, and look up Modern Day Debate, as we are absolutely pumped that we are on podcast. All of our debates that are here on YouTube also end up on the podcast, and that's right now we're catching up. We're about a week behind in terms of when the live stream occurs and then when the debate makes it onto the podcast. But you can find both David C. Smalley and Stuart's links in that description box for the podcast episode as well. And so we are shortly going to go into the Q&A. And depending on David C. Smalley, do you happen to have, if you want more open discussion, we can. Otherwise, if you're ready for the Q&A, we'll see what Stuart says. I think Stuart will be back in just a moment. What are you feeling right now?
No, I'm ready for the Q&A.
You got it.
I think we've beat that dead horse long enough. So
it's been a fun one. And so I got to tell you, both you and Stuart, I got to give you kudos. People have really been enjoying this. And so I really do. We want to let you know, folks, if this is your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we're a neutral platform. So we don't take any stances. We only host debates. And we host debates on science, religion, and politics. And we want to let you know, no matter what walk of life you are from, we really do hope you feel welcome, whether you be Christian, atheist, gay, straight, black, white, Republican, Democrat, you name it. We're glad you're here. And so thanks for being with us.
James, do you not ever tell anybody what your stance is on anything?
They know what my stance is on a couple of things. However, I try to never like if people ask, I might say, but most of the stuff I haven't disclosed. Yeah.
So are you a Christian?
I am a Christian. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for having this platform. It's very, very brave of you.
That's nice of you. Thank you for your kind words. And again, we can't thank the speakers enough. So, folks, please do give some love to David C. Smalley and Stuart, as we really do appreciate them for just hanging out here. It makes it fun. And so we'll jump into these questions. This one from Oz says, "End the stream. Smalley is the victor." You got a fan out there. Then we've got Spicy Road says, "Stuart, why is God more successful in less educated countries rather than in higher educated countries?" And by successful, I think they mean in kind of being believed in.
Yeah. So I would say the secular hypothesis, which is atheism connected with science and the growth in technology, God was supposed to disappear and atheism was supposed to just keep increasing. Now it's 12%. In the next, I think, 10 years, it's supposed to drop down worldwide to 7%. Now, a lot of that has to do with just atheists just don't have babies. But I think that's connected to a type of, well, first of all, it's just wrong. That's just a wrong statement in many ways. It depends on how you look at the statistics, because you could look at the US right now and you could say, hey, religious nons are increasing greatly. Okay, fine. You take a poll of those religious nons, the non-religious types. They're not atheists. The vast majority of those are kind of the Oprah Winfrey spiritual types, which is there's a higher power, there's some type of supernatural being.
Well, Stuart, let me just clarify the question for the question asker.
Yeah.
You do acknowledge the Pew Research surveys and studies that come out every few years that repeatedly show the lower education, the more likely someone is to be religious, and the higher the education, the less likely the person is to be religious. And the same thing goes with God belief. The same thing goes with belief in ghosts, belief in angels, belief in demons. It's kind of the same pattern, right? You do acknowledge that the more education one attains, the less likely they are to believe in a God. I think that's what the question asker is trying to get at. Why is God more successful in being believed in where there is lower education and it's harder for him to convince people who have more education?
Shockingly, I thought that was true too. It's actually false. Check out Inspiring Philosophy. I had Michael Jones once on our show. He did a meta-analysis, meta-studies, showing cross-studies that clearly show that that's false. And then look at the Harvard study that the U.S., I think it was the Post put out, study over the last 20 years saying that they didn't have IQ on there. So maybe don't check that one out. But in every other area, in terms of health, psychological health, relational health, happiness, I think IQ is on there, but I don't want to be certain on that one. It's greater if you go to church, for example, on a weekly basis. And so yes, I don't fully disagree with the person in the sense of, if you go to, I've been to Haiti, I've been to a lot of those poor countries, and yes, a belief in some form of God is burgeoning in different ways. But I would say, look at Lamansana at Yale, look at others who clearly show that Christianity travels so differently than any other religion, it's not even close. In terms of every world religion other than Christianity is still the high percentage of, is still located where that religion started. You look at Christianity, it moved from Palestine, over
Must
to
move.
Europe,
Move.
then to the U.S., Latin America, Africa. So it's hard, it's impossible to say that ultimately in terms of those.
Well, growth of a religion has a lot to do with adaptability and has nothing to do with its truthfulness.
We've got one from Tom's Chair. Says, me versus your sorry chair. Let's go. Thank you for that, Tom's Chair. And Sunflower says, Dave, to fix your metal detector analogy, I would say that it should be that you are compelled to keep on using it out of faith, and one day we'll find something.
Yeah, that's more of a question or a challenge for Stuart, I think. But like they're just improving upon my argument that I just got into on my second beer. They just came into my head here. Thanks to the God I worship, Sapporo, not a sponsor. I think Stuart should really answer that. Yeah, imagine that. Imagine the game where I say, okay, I've given you a metal detector, and then you find out I've only hid plastic, and you go, oh, well, I don't need this metal detector. And I go, you have to keep searching with the metal detector in order to find the plastic. That's kind of the hand we've been dealt if your version of God exists. And I think that's what the question asker is getting at here.
Gotcha. And this one comes in from Magellan asks, Stuart, can you give a single example of God's existence versus his non-existence? And in particular, a tangible example.
Holy Spirit. That's the only tangible one you could say, in my mind.
Gotcha. And Chris Peacock, thanks for your
Wait, the Holy Spirit, hold on. The Holy Spirit is tangible?
Absolutely. You could. People say all the time that you can actually feel the Holy Spirit inside of you. It brings conviction. You know when you're right or wrong. It brings happiness. It brings joy, and it sheds light on who Jesus Christ truly is. So that's the closest you can come to tangible. You're right. If you say in terms of grabbing this table, no, it's not that type of tangibility. But the closest you can get to tangible would be the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, tangible means in your heart. Tangible means perceptible by touch, and I don't think having an emotion run through your body would be considered touch. So I would reject that the Holy Spirit is tangible.
We could parse that one in different ways. Sure.
This one coming in from, thanks Chris Peacock for your super sticker, and David Bauer Socks, thanks for your question for Stuart. They said, David having an atheist platform means more people are becoming atheist. As a matter of stopping that conversion, shouldn't David be a top target?
Oh, is that for me?
Yes.
I guess he's asking, shouldn't God target me because I have a platform of atheists?
No. There were a lot of successful angry atheists in the Bible who God did not target and smite. No, I like that atheist YouTube channels are growing, it seems. I don't know the studies on them, but it seems like in some ways they're growing because it shows that there's a type of pluralism in the US right now. And if there's not multiple platforms with all religions, atheism, etc., the Christian faith is not going to grow as fast. Oddly enough, that's a study show. And no, atheism worldwide, again, it's decreasing. It's because atheists are not having babies. And if you're pro-evolutionary psychology, you're not going to be an atheist because you're going to want to say, how do we grow the population in the world? And so you're going to be a Christian because then you're having on average 2.8 to 3.5 babies versus an atheist who has one or less. So if you're into evolution, be a Christian.
Yeah, but when those babies start Googling stuff you're saying, I think Christianity is going to go back down. So I would encourage people to fact check what you're hearing here tonight.
This one comes in from Brian F. Says, I read the Bible, asked questions, and prayed for 3 months. One day, God gave me a full-blown revelation. All my problems in life were a result of not obeying. David, have you ever honestly seeked God?
Absolutely. I actually was saved. Stuart was right when he said there's a really good chance that I was saved. In fact, the moment I was dunked in the water and the preacher said, do you believe Jesus Christ died for your sins so that you may enter the kingdom of heaven? And I said, I do. And he said, you are hereby saved in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And when I went underwater, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. How does punishing the innocent pardon the guilty? This doesn't make any sense. And how I've got thousands of more questions now. And then I came back up and I was petrified that I'd been baptized, but I didn't really understand what any of it meant. And then I was like, told to go knock on doors. And I say on my podcast that I felt like I was given the jersey and pushed out on the field, and I knew none of the plays or what sport I was even playing. And I felt responsible for winning souls when I had no idea what the hell was going on. Me knocking on doors and saying, I want to talk to you about Jesus, and then having someone say, honey, you need Jesus, and slamming the door in my face made me think maybe she has the correct version of Jesus on the other side of that door, and I'm pulling people out of their faith. I better know what the hell I'm talking about before I knock on another door. That's what led me to actually start reading the Bible. So I was baptized into the faith. I was raised as a believer. I believed until I was a late teenager into my early 20s. I kind of fought it, and then just openly became an atheist publicly. And a lot of my listeners who have been with me for, the last 11 years or so have seen the journey, right? And my book, Baptized Atheists, kind of details that journey of the questions I started asking in the beginning, the theology professors I sat down and talked with, the preachers and pastors, the conflicting information I was getting from Christian sources, the conflicting Bible verses, the multiple contradictions I couldn't make sense. That has all been a journey. So yeah, when people ask me if I've ever actually asked God, and yes, I've given my entire life to God. I was a part of a music ministry, and at one point had plans on becoming a preacher. So yes, I've given it a fair shot. I gave it everything I had. I gave it my entire life. And I've even given it the last 15 to 18 years as an atheist, starting as a writer and editor of American Atheist magazine. My approach has always been searching for the truth, not disproving something by plugging my fingers in my ears.
Gotcha. And this one coming in from Marcus Gillard says, this is for both debaters. Does personal experience prove that God exists? I used to have dreams of God. Now, not at all. I'm searching for God too.
I'd say no. Personal experience can be an excuse for why you suspend reality because your personal experience was so strong. But I don't think that can be proof for anyone else that there is a God.
Agreed. I would say it's strong evidence.
Gotcha. And this one coming in from Victor Hallock. Thanks for your question, Victor. Says, for Stuart, honest question from a believer friend. If God exists, why would he not hide quote-unquote clues in his creation to reaffirm his existence for those who search for him? Reality appears to directly contradict his existence.
Friend, just read John Edwards or John Piper. Study Christian hedonism. The way those guys get in touch with nature and have such an experience. I mean, these guys are brilliant, by the way, like insanely brilliant. They're not just these fundamentalist Christian types who live under rocks and are not smart. Brilliant people, not the emotional types, the intellectual types, who have had such crazy experiences of the Holy Spirit and God walking through nature in the woods specifically that they've had to say, God, please stop. And so I think those clues are there in, for example, general revelation.
Yeah, 1 in 33 birth defects. 1 in 33 births has a birth defect. Look at hurricanes, look at tornadoes, look at earthquakes, look at mudslides, look at the absolute destruction nature has caused. Look at the multiple bone diseases and cancers and COVID-19. You want to look at nature for God? You look at a God who doesn't give a damn about any of us. It looks like a God that's trying to get rid of us.
And I would say that's evidence for God, because why would that bother you so much if there wasn't a God? That's why C.S. Lewis became a Christian.
Because I love because I love other human beings. And I don't need a God. I don't need a hateful God in order for me to love humans.
No, but you have this strong conviction and desire, and you're calling it wrong. Where you get this type of moral obligation to say that it's wrong. See, this is what the most reluctant convert, C.S. Lewis, one of the smartest men ever to be at Oxford and Cambridge, he became a Christian for this point, because he was making your point. He said, all the suffering, that's why I can't be a Christian. But all of a sudden he started to realize, wait a second, why is this bothering me so much? And that led him to faith.
Well, us all being connected as human beings, us having mirror neurons in our brain and understanding the concept of suffering, we can get back on the schedule, and I can have you on my podcast and we can have an entire debate on morality, because I'm one of the few atheists that'll step up and say, I do believe in some aspect of objective morality. So I knew at some point we would have this, where do you get your morality from question. If we want to expand that onto another show, another version of this debate, or you want to come on my show, I'll be more than happy to get into that, because I do have answers for those questions. But the fact that someone feels love in their heart, the fact that someone sees someone else struggling and wants to help them. There are multiple examples of that happening in nature outside of humanity. Dogs saving dogs from a street, gorillas saving other gorillas, bears saving birds from drowning. No God needed for one mammal to have compassion for another mammal. So we can table that until next time.
This next one from Sarah Jenkins says, I heard God sends prophets like Mo and Jesus because God himself is so powerful that his power would immediately kill us, so he hides for us. I think Mo referred to Muhammad. I
thought maybe Moses.
Oh,
yeah,
that could
Moses
be.
too.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. I would just say, keep in mind, who was the question asker there?
Sarah Jenkins.
Sarah, I understand that is an answer maybe you have heard. And I would say, just imagine, keep in mind in all of this, that if that's true, God is also the one who made that rule, right? He created the physics that we understand and live in. So if his presence is so powerful, it will kill us. That's only because he designed it that way. So he created this rule that just seeing him would melt our faces off. Who would do that with someone they want a relationship with? Who would make that the rule? Just think about it that way.
Jumping into the next question from Harry White says, only inner spirituality can give you belief in God. More of a statement. Next. No thoughts? You don't have to if you don't have anything.
Yes, I mean, part of it. I would say partly. I wouldn't fully agree with that.
No, I would say evidence can give you belief in God, but the evidence has to make sense and be empirical.
Right, what is belief? Yeah.
Right. It's a subset of, yeah.
Gotcha. And David Bowersox, thanks for your question, says, what do you have coming up on the DCS show?
Oh, on my podcast, I've got a couple of people lined up, Christians, a couple of crystal healers. I've got a person who is a Reiki healer who is set to come. And I've got some comedy shows that we're talking about June 11th and 12th in the San Diego area. So I'm broadening my horizon outside of just Christianity, and we're doing a lot of stuff on people who believe in laying hands on someone and healing them, or believe in Reiki or some sort of audio sort of. This started with someone trying to sponsor my show, and I turned them down, and they got angry. Right? It was like, hey, I want you to tell people about this product that they can go to sleep and listen to sound waves and it cures cancer. And I was like, not in a million years am I going to advertise that on my show. And they're like, no, I can prove to you it works. And I'm like, let's do it. And so, yeah, I'm all about that. So I'm about testing claims, and I'm also a comedian. So I try to walk that line of being funny and having a good time during the show without directly offending the person I'm talking to, because I also want to extend an olive branch of respect. So yeah, it's a lot of that coming up. We're kind of branching out away from Christianity, but still a lot of Christian scheduled. So you can just look at the title of the episode and it'll tell you pretty much the type of guest I have on that day.
You got it. Thank you very much. And then Magellan, thanks for your question, said, if triangles had a god, it would have 3 sides.
I love that. That's great. Stuart, do you get the reference?
No, give it to me.
It's that human beings created God in our own image. So if triangles had a god, it would have 3 sides. If circles had a god, it would be a circle. I love that. I'm going to use that moving forward. Who said that again, James?
Magellan.
Damn it. That's good stuff, man. I love that. If a triangle had a god, it would have 3 sides. That's a perfect response to this. That's a really quick way of saying, it's like a Twitter version way of saying what I talked about, the crocodile example. To that baby crocodile, that mother is its God. It is protection. It is savior. It is everything. It is the source of food. It's literally everything. And the same for the gazelle that pops out and has no idea what this new world is. And when the 2-year-old is walking around the living room and there's a big thunderclap outside and it runs full force for its mother, you didn't have to teach that. It wanted to be around something bigger and more powerful that looks like itself for protection. It didn't run to a chair. It didn't run to a stuffed animal. It didn't run to the big screen TV. It ran to the thing that looked like itself. And I think that's a brilliant way of saying if a triangle, I think that's a brilliant way to say it, that if a triangle had a God, it would have three sides. We created God in our own image.
I don't look anything like Jesus looked.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
No
Thanks for your
American flag
question.
around Jesus.
This one coming in from Victor says, Stuart, with peace and love, you would be a great mind on some genuine pursuits in the STEM field. Please consider moving into one of the STEM fields.
I agree.
And is it Tasha? Let me know if I pronounce it right. Tasha Thomas, thank you very much for your question. Said, David, the problem of atheism is not without a detector, but a fated detector is what the problem with atheism is. They say, in parentheses, self-inflicted memory loss. To win a game, you have to play it.
I'm not clear on what that means. Is she saying, forgive me if I'm misgendering, I thought you said it was a woman. Is she, help clarify that. Is she saying that
I think they're
metal detector is like, I'm sorry. Run that
yeah,
by
no,
me.
it is. So one thing I'm going to change when I read it this time, I think they meant with. So I think they're saying, David, the problem of atheism is not with a detector, but a fated detector due to self-inflicted memory loss. I think that they're saying
Right.
that you're purposely not wanting to detect God.
Yeah. And again, that just goes back to victim blaming. I have no control over that. If my memory is gone, I don't know how that could be my fault. I'm not, and I don't know any atheists, in fact, who are intentionally suppressing this idea of God. Stuart seems to talk to these crazy atheists who are angry at a God they don't acknowledge exists, which that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But yeah, I think blaming the person for not having the memory that they allegedly caused themselves to lose is just a very convenient sidestep to let God off the hook and to just victim blame the little person. I mean, that would be like me telling the 3-year-old, hey, I need you to lock the door whenever I leave so that no one takes you. And then I walk out the door and the 3-year-old never locks the door because they're 3, and then they get kidnapped. And then later people are like, bro, you left the 3-year-old by themselves? And I go, hey, they suppressed my memory of telling them to lock the door. It's kind of their fault they got taken. Hold on. If I'm the responsible adult in the room and I'm the smart one and they have the puny brain of the 3-year-old, isn't it my responsibility to ensure their safety? And if I leave and avoid making sure they're safe and they do something that causes themselves to be in danger, rather than blaming me, if I go, they screwed up, that's just victim blaming. That's just picking on the puny brain thing that didn't know any better. And I think that's a cop-out for Christianity.
This one coming in from Abdullah Ibn Iblis, thanks, said, enjoyed it. So glad you did enjoy this one tonight, folks.
Thank you.
Abdullah in particular. Tom's Chair says, I wouldn't want God to show up to me. I'd want God to show up to the Children's Hospital first.
Agreed.
Stuart, I think that they're pressing you on the problem of evil implicitly.
Well, I'm going to defer to Alvin Plantinga when he talks about the pup tent example with the no-see-ums. There could be, how do you know if you're granting a God complete omniscience and we are this puny little, way below an ant in our ability to even start to think compared to God? How do you know that there could not be reasons for any type of evil and suffering? And I know that could sound callous in certain situations. Absolutely, it could. But I'm simply looking at it from a philosophical, not more of a counselor perspective. Yeah. And so you look at, for example, like Job. I mean, think about how much Job suffered. He lost his finances, he lost his family, he lost his own health. And then think about how the story of Job has helped so many people going through suffering for thousands of years.
And then imagine blaming that ant for not developing a relationship with the ant farmer.
But you're putting so much more on free will. Again, if we're on a seesaw right now, David, free will for you is like, you got to balance with God's sovereignty.
Well, I mean, if he's making the rules as to how I can play, I think it's ultimately up to him.
Like, don't forget, there is no way any Christian could ever stand in condemnation on somebody's soul. You don't know. You just don't. I mean, look at the thief on the cross. Deathbed conversions. You have no idea if somebody is saved or not.
I don't know, but John 7:24 says you can pass righteous judgment once you've reached righteousness. So if you have a relationship with God, do you not have authority, divine authority, in fact, to pass righteous judgment according to John 7:24?
Well, what is righteous judgment? I mean, is that saying that I literally believe I could judge your soul that it will absolutely be in hell?
Some could take it that way.
You could take it that way. I certainly don't take it that way. I don't think you get an ounce in scripture on anything that's saying that a human being could say that somebody's going to absolutely be in hell. Even Hitler.
You can jump in the next one. And this one coming in from Pastor John says, to fix David's, they like your analogy. They got a kick out of that. And so they are giving alternatives. They're trying to give kind of new ways of looking at it. They say, to fix David's analogy by assuming God has given you a metal detector, you assume you will find God through empirical means. God has given you a map to follow, seek, and find if you seek with all of your heart.
That's again victim blaming. What that ultimately turns into is all of the people watching right now and listening through the podcast who have sought with every fiber of their being, who have cried out to God, who have been in desperate situations, who were raised in the church, who were raised by pastors, who were sexually abused in the church or abused by pastors for years and decades and so on. All of those people who cried out for help, who didn't get an answer, what you're saying, Pastor John, is it's your fault. You didn't seek hard enough. You didn't cry hard enough. You didn't believe enough. You didn't say the right words in the right way. You didn't get enough hands clasped in prayer. You didn't get enough heads bowed in prayer. You didn't get enough people behind you, or you didn't say the right thing to make God give a damn about you, even though he saw your suffering and was in the room while it was happening. He never cared. He watched with indifference because you didn't say the right combination. You didn't say the right magic words. And then when we die, our reward is to worship at the feet of the one being who could have prevented that suffering and chose to watch with indifference. That's not a reward to me. That's shoving it in my face.
Next one coming in from Sphincter of Doom says, the supernatural cannot be known by definition, given the natural means by which we experience or perceive things, and any natural perception of his influence could not be distinguished from nature.
I have a strict policy of not answering questions from someone named Sphincter of Doom. So I'm not sure what the hell they're asking.
Yeah,
Sphincter of Doom. I got to be honest. I didn't listen after you said Sphincter of Doom. I just kept imagining what that could possibly look like. So I have no clue what you said after that. But
it is a long question. So I'm frankly still piecing it together, even while looking at it. So, and any natural perception of his influence could not be distinguished from nature. So I think that they're saying that it's like, roughly speaking. Sorry, Sphincter, if I say this the wrong way, but they said, roughly speaking, I think they're saying like we're using the wrong means if we're looking like with an empirical emphasis. They say, I'll read it again, the supernatural cannot be known by definition,
right,
given that the natural means by which we experience and perceive things, and any natural perception of his influence could not be distinguished from nature.
Right. That's exactly my entire point of the analogy of the metal detector, is God is metaphysical, yet we don't have the ability to detect the metaphysical. We can't see things that are invisible by definition because they are outside of our field of vision, right? So that's the whole point, is that God gave us the ability to go, this is a glass. I can touch it. I can feel it. Here's how I detect things. I know that I'm cold because I can feel the air on me and I can go do something about that. And then God's going to go, listen, the The most important thing about your existence as a human is to detect me and develop a relationship with me. And so the human then goes, all right, great. Which plane of existence are you going to exist on? The one that I can smell, the one that I can taste, the one that I can feel, the one that I can hear? Oh, no. On a plane of existence that you can't detect. You just have to hope you're right about the version of me that other people tell you about from a book that's going to be translated by 1,600 different authors. Over a period of 1,600 years by dozens of different authors over 3 different languages. We're going to make it really confusing. And by the way, in the book, Jesus is going to specifically talk in parables with the intent to confuse you so that you will hear, but you will not understand. We're going to do all of this on purpose. And I'm the God who have put all of this into place. That's kind of the whole point of my analogy, is that I have this conversation all the time with Christians, and the blaming the human being for not detecting the God who has intentionally set up the game for itself to remain undetectable just makes me wonder, what are we doing here? Like, what are you doing, Stuart? Why are you continuing to play the game when you can't detect God with the tools he gave you to detect? It has to be a hope. It has to be a feeling. It has to be a belief. But you can't know on something that's that important, that your eternity literally depends on it. That's the one thing you have to take on faith. I just don't see a loving God setting up a game in which he remains undetectable, yet his detection is the most important factor.
So the piece on James, you want me to answer, or do you want to keep going?
I'll give you a chance if you want to do one.
Okay, yeah. So is this still sphincter? If it's still sphincter, the whole supernatural piece is exactly right. Because if you go into any hospital and you have a finger that the top of it's missing, and miraculously your finger grows back, there is no way to test the miraculous because of a controlled environment, and you need repeatability. Right? So science can't touch the supernatural. So you're spot on about that one. And that's connected to the 5 senses, which David just hit right now. And I would add, I don't think this is strong evidence for God, but it's definitely evidence. Recently, there was a poll taken. Over 30 million people across only 3 continents have had direct experiences with the supernatural, miraculous, or NDEs even. And so, yes, you can't experience God and the supernatural with your 5 senses, but wow, there are a lot of people out there who are either hallucinating or playing some crazy games or just lying. And we know there are many of those, but I think that in and of itself, these new studies are showing something where there is this type of universal ability to connect with something supernatural that is not necessarily tangible.
And I just want to say, I request extra credit points for being 2 beers in, hearing the word sphincter and finger in the same sentence and not making a joke about it.
That's true. That is some raw self-control and power. Thank you, David C. Smalley. And this next one from Mike Q922 says, David and Stuart, thanks for expressing your views. And Stuart, they say, is evil are evil and suffering in the world a huge factor to people leaving Christianity? Any thoughts on this?
That's the number one that I hear for people not coming to the faith, and yes, many leaving. But it's also the one, oddly enough, and this is the pastoral counselor side of me. I'm not going with the callous, philosophical. Pastoral counselor side, I've seen many people who've had things like cancer that they've literally been a shell of themselves, and painkillers have not been able to help them whatsoever. And they will read the Bible and, again, get some type of solace that I can't call it anything other than some type of supernatural solace, to be quite honest, if you want me to be totally honest with you. And I'm more of the scientific type side of things. And so, yes, I see some people leave the faith because of things like a stillbirth, but I see way more people come to know God through some type of suffering. They'll at least come to church. Any atheist will step in the doors of a church if they're suffering, because they're going to test everything, right? The drugs aren't working, the counseling's not working. All right, let me try church. And so no, I think it cuts both ways, but that's typically the one you'll hear.
Gotcha. This one coming in from Ron Tronimus. Thank you very much. Said the whole thing is based on the assumption that anyone could possibly understand or know what they or God may be or is thinking or planning. But isn't this unknowable? I think they're saying, like, couldn't it be that God has a plan or a reason that makes it such that God is, in the alleged case, not in any way appearing to anybody?
Yeah, that could be the case. I'm sure Stuart would agree, right? And that's kind of what you believe, is that he's not appearing. I guess the question I would have on my side is, fine if that's the case, but to then offer some form of punishment for those who don't figure it out or eternal reward for those who do is just cruel. It's a cruel treatment of humanity. While if that God exists, he has given me this instinct to love humanity and the mirror neurons in my brain to recognize suffering and to help people avoid that suffering. Yet he seems to be indifferent to our suffering. It doesn't, if you're going to make yourself invisible, don't make that the number one goal of the entire existence of humanity, is to find you. I mean, how crazy is this? Like a babysitter going, all right, you got to find me, count to 10, and then hiding. And if the little kid doesn't find the babysitter, she spanks him or sets him on fire or beats him up or something. Like, if you don't find me, okay, I come out of hiding and we do it again, right? But there's no drastic consequence for not finding you. So if you're going to set the game up that way, if you're going to make yourself impossible to find, don't make that the entire purpose of my existence.
I think a big piece of this is, David sees it as this unfair, non-loving game of heaven and hell. I see it as God's ultimate love and respect for our freedom and choice, whether to live with him or not. If he was forcing us to live with him, that'd kind of be like, everybody's had that girlfriend or boyfriend who, they claim to just be a friend, but then they say, hey, I really like you a lot, and you don't like them whatsoever back. And yet they try and force you. They gameplay into, oh, come on, let's at least stay friends, and then maybe something, and then 2 years later, everybody's had that type of experience. Well, God is not going to do that type of thing to us. No, he's going to be the boyfriend or girlfriend who says, I respect you as just a friend, and I know you don't want to love me, even though I love you, and so I'm letting you go.
Are you suggesting that if God showed himself to me, I would be forced to love him?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, then your analogy completely fails, because Lucifer knows for a fact God exists and he chose to turn his back on him. So God showing himself to me right now, because let me let you in a little secret. If God were to appear right here, right now, on this live stream, by the way, let me make room for him. If God were to show up right here, give me something. Okay, I tried. If God were to show up right here, I would be like, why in 1 Samuel 15:3 did you tell Saul to go wipe out the Amalekites and tell them to stomp out the little infants and the children who were still nursing? Why did you tell them to be killed? Why didn't you just unharden the heart of the Pharaoh instead of wiping out the firstborn of all the people in the village? Why? I would have a million questions for that God.
It was done.
I'll give you the last chance to respond, Stuart, because they originally directed the question.
Ancient Near Eastern culture. I have no problem with God judging in that kind of way, where it was done even more ruthlessly by other civilizations, one. And then two, David's going right back to my main points, which were, no, God is not just going to, here, God, show up right now. That gets right back to God being the cosmic bellboy, the genie in a bottle baby. No, it's not that type of game playing with the God of the entire universe. Again, remember, this God created the whole universe. Are we simply asking this God who created the whole universe to be our nice little assistant? That's literally what we're asking him to do right now.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
But again, and then David going back to show up, God, show up, God. This gets right back to my 2 points, 2 of my 4 points, which is, it's not about just believing that God exists. Hey, he's here. Whoa. It's not belief. It's loving relationship and trust. That's why you've got to go to the Gospels with Jesus Christ. Because here's what I do believe with David.
It's got to be short and
If we didn't have the Gospels and Jesus Christ, then yeah, there would be no way I could actually have a trusting relationship with any type of God. So agreed there.
This one coming in from Harry White. This is for you, David. This is an interesting one. They say, even if God doesn't exist, so they're saying, let's grant that's the case, and they say, wouldn't an atheist world be nihilistic? In other words, there's like suffering or harm that happens to organisms, but it's not imbued with this deeper moral meaning. And they say, have you ever considered this, David?
Sure. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with evil existing in the world without a God, because evolution doesn't give a damn about you. It's about adapting to your surroundings. I'm fine with bad things happening to people if there is no God, because chance and random chance and car accidents, and humans are fallible creatures who create fallible machines, and we're going to make mistakes. And I'm fine with loss. I've lost my dad. I've lost my son to a motorcycle accident. My mom just got breast cancer literally last month. She's surviving. She's fighting through it, just had surgery. I'm fine with dealing with all of these things as an atheist, because I know that this is the reality that I have, and I've got to fight through it and deal with it problem by problem with as much science and reality as possible. I'm not hitting my knees, asking for an invisible deity that I've created in my childhood to help me with something. I'm dealing with the problems as an adult, one-on-one as they come, and saying goodbye to people as they leave my life the best I know how. I'm mourning the death. I'm welcoming new babies. I'm solving problems the best that I can according to my human standards. But it makes sense that there would be suffering if there is no God, because evolution doesn't give a damn about you. But as soon as Stuart says there is a God who loves you and seeks a relationship with you, but is remaining hidden from you when he has the power to show himself, that only introduces thousands of more questions as to why he's not making himself known.
Gotcha. Sorry to hear about those things, David. And we are glad to have you both, David and Stuart, here. We've got just a few more questions. Want to let you know, folks, we're going to kind of move through these quick. We for sure won't be able to get through any questions. We do want to respect the time of our guests. And so please, no more questions. But Long Nights YouTube, and thank you for your question, said it's now proven that UFOs are real and we don't know what's flying them, though. Pastor, is it safe to say that they don't believe in that Bible or your Jesus?
I have no idea. And if aliens are on other planets, they easily could be Christians or atheists. It's all speculative.
They could be God.
Juicy. And thank you for this next question. Bubblegum Gun says the same reason aliens and others won't: politics. Next up, thank you, Band for Life, for your super sticker, as well as Flat Earth Guy, who says, I endorse this channel. Thank you. Next up, Bubblegum God says, the creator is a free market anarchist, hands off. And then there are just, I think, maybe two more that I had seen. Let me just load this page, but want to remind you folks, our guests are linked in the description. We do appreciate them. Want to remind you, friendly reminder, 99% of you do a phenomenal job at this. And so for that 1% that sometimes struggles with it, we want to encourage you to attack the arguments instead of the person. And this one coming in from Victor Hallock says, Stuart, what's your favorite Christian band?
So I get in trouble with this one because I'm more of a pop kind of guy, and my worship music is, let's just say my worship little podcast playlist is pretty small. I would say it would be a singer named Keith Green. Keith Green died in a plane crash, too young, back in, I think, the 80s.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And then this next question, I don't know if this is serious. They say, if God were to, sorry if that was an insult, Bubblegum Gun. So they say, if God were to act out of love, it would be theft. This kind of sounds actually a little bit like, okay, I don't understand this. Do either of you?
If God were to act out of love, it would be
theft.
Theft? Right. I'm not clear, no.
Okay, it's not just me then. Okay, well, thank you for your question, Bubblegum Gun. And we do appreciate... Oh, that's... No, actually, okay, Sarah Jenkins says my question was for Stuart. Oh, okay, gotcha. Let me just, to humor Sarah, because we do appreciate your question, Sarah. Sarah's question, I think that they wanted to see what your response was, Stuart, and they didn't hear it. Sarah had said, I heard God sends prophets like Moses and Jesus because God himself is so powerful that his power would immediately kill us, so he hides for us. Like, Stuart, what were your thoughts on this? Did you respond? I can't remember.
No, I didn't respond.
Okay.
So his holiness in, well, it's a really Christianese term, but it is in the Bible, so I'll use it. Shekinah glory gets at such incredible holiness, and he's the source of all moral goodness. And so once Jesus Christ comes, then we have access to God the Father. But before Jesus Christ came, because of the moral goodness and holiness, which simply means set apart in such a powerful way, humans could not connect with God in the sense of being his physical presence at that time. Say, for examples, like Moses with the burning bush, where it's a theophany where God is showing up in a bush, or at other times like in a cloud. So when it just shows the seriousness of God the Father in the Old Testament when it comes to his holiness and goodness, which again makes sense. If he's the God of the entire universe and he's the ultimate source of all goodness and holiness and everything right and good, then we humans who are fallible and broken most likely are going to have a tough time in his presence. But again, if we didn't have Jesus Christ, then I would have a tough time believing in this God and wanting any type of relationship with him. But because Jesus came, that gives us a possibility to actually have a relationship with a historical figure.
All according to God's plan.
Want to say thank you so much, folks, for hanging out with us. I will be back with a post-credit scene in just a moment, letting you know about juicy upcoming debates that we're excited about. But want to give one last thank you to David C. Smalley and Stuart for being with us. It's been a true pleasure, gentlemen. Be right back, folks.
James. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart.
Be right back in just a moment, folks, and stick around. Ladies and gentlemen, that was an epic one, really fun. So I am so excited, folks. Got to let you know about several awesome things. I'm excited to get to say hi to you in the chat, and starting with upcoming epic stuff. You guys, we are absolutely pumped about this. If you have not heard, on the bottom right of your screen, this debate is coming up on June 5th. It's only 20 days away, and it's going to be epic. Matt Dillahunty, atheist debater, and you could say juggernaut in the debate world, will be taking on Dr. Kenny Rhodes, Christian apologist, on whether or not there is good evidence for God. You don't want to miss it, folks. It's going to be epic, so hit that subscribe button and that notification button as well so you don't miss out on that awesome debate. We're pumped about it. So what we are doing, folks, is if you have somehow not heard, maybe you're new here, who knows what it is, but want to let you know, what we are doing is this event, we are raising funds for the honorariums for our speakers. And so we absolutely are determined to, as you see on the far right side of your screen, that right there is our ultimate goal for the project. And that includes some extra as we're trying to put out advertisements for this huge debate as well. And so that's built in, as well as like the, you could say, Indiegogo fees and all that stuff. And so our goal is $3,500. And folks, I'm pumped that we are cruising in terms of this crowdfund. Want to say, folks, if you haven't already, join us on this crowdfund, as I got to tell you a couple things. One, the link to the crowdfund is in the description box below, right below the speakers' links. And also, you guys have to mention this. I'm going to throw it into the actual live chat right now, our crowdfund. So you can access it there as well, pinned at the top of the live chat. And we highly want to encourage you folks. This is going to be epic, and we are, as mentioned, these guys put in a lot of preparation. They're putting in a lot of time in terms of this debate becoming a great debate as they get ready for it. And also, of course, their time debating. We really do want to honor them. And so that's why, folks, we absolutely have to reach this goal for this debate to happen. And so we are determined we're going to make it happen, but want to let you know, folks, let me give you some of the deets about this event, because you might be brand new to it and maybe you're like, I don't like, what crowdfund, what is that, what is he talking about? First, this is the debate we're talking about on screen, Dr. Kenny Rhodes and Matt Dillahunty. And as of now, folks, it's set to be public for the actual live stream. So the last one, we had the live stream private for those who put into the crowdfund. So it was only like $3. If someone put in a minimum of $3 into the crowdfund, they would get to watch it live. In this case, we're like, well, we think people are excited about the crowdfund, regardless of whether or not it gets them, you could say, the ticket to watch it live. But this time, we were like, hey, so as a result, it is, as of now, we're planning on it being shown to the public, like completely, like absolutely to the public from the very live stream. So last time we basically had it in private during the live stream, and then we released it on the channel a couple of days later. And we might do that depending on how the crowdfunding is going. If it looks like nobody's like, I think we're doing well, but if it looks like we kind of sputter out and we don't really have the crowdfund growing closer to that goal, we might do that. But we're pretty confident we're going to be able to just have it be public, so everybody can watch the live stream as well, even if they have not put in to the crowdfund. But also want to let you know about a couple of other things. You might be like, well, James, are you sure that you can do this? I mean, like, this crowdfund idea, YouTube channel, you're doing that? We have already done it. Look at the bottom right of your screen. We did this in January. Basically, December, January, we used as months to crowdfund to get Dr. Michael Shermer, who you're seeing on screen, to face off with Michael Jones, popular Christian apologist, on whether or not Christianity is dangerous. So we've already done it. We've already, you could say, gone through the process. Believe me, we're going to make this goal. In fact, last time we had 143 backers. Right now we have 29. So we have many more people that we were expecting are going to jump in on this crowdfund, and we appreciate that so much. So thank you guys in advance for supporting this. As we have 3,000, last time we had raised 3,141, and so this bumped up goal, it's only bumped up by, what is that, about $350, and so we absolutely can make this goal, and we're determined, folks. Believe me, I'm crazy. I don't care if it's me and T Jump that have to do a car wash. It's going to happen. We're going to make this event happen. And if you are new to it, you're like, how do I Indiegogo? What is that? Indiegogo is just like Kickstarter, where basically you can throw a few dollars or however much you want. I'll show you the perks in a moment. You can throw in a few bucks. At the lowest tier, it's, for example, $3, the price of a cup of coffee. And you can sign in so easily. For example, you can sign in with Facebook, and you can just breeze on through, so you don't even have to give them your email or anything like that, and you can actually make your contribution that way, which we really do appreciate, as this allows the channel to make, you could say, take bigger risks in terms of getting more high-profile debates and debaters. And so we are excited about this strategy as, hey, we plan on continuing to use this to get bigger, badder debates that are more epic. And in the future, like, no joke, this at the end of the summer, we were thinking about like some other kind of another project, assuming this one goes well. And so if you support Modern Day Debate, if you support the vision of a neutral platform providing this level playing field so everybody can make their case, we want to encourage you to join us in fulfilling that vision by giving to the crowdfund. And again, that's linked at the top of the chat, and it's also in the description box. But want to show you this last of all. Folks, we have added perks that weren't there last time. So I will show you, if you look at the top of the screen right now, you will see, I'm going to adjust it. So first, perk number one, the first level, you could say, just helping make this event happen. Just $3, and it's the price of a cup of coffee. I mean, easy peasy. And so that helps support the channel, which we appreciate. If it's ever been kind of like, yeah, this channel, it's all right, I've gotten a few hours out of it, that helps us a lot as we are trying to provide you better content and bigger debates and more epic, you could say, just absolutely enthralling events. So we do appreciate that support. And then the next tier, Making this event huge adds an extra few dollars, which helps us get the word out via promotion. And then the next tier is your name on screen. So at the very bottom of the screen, we have that ticker that has people's names, as well as your name read out loud. And so that's another cool one where at the end of the debate, we will read all of the people who are at the 4th tier. We will read off their names in a list just like we did last time. The next tier is, it actually doesn't show on the sticker because it's so new that I have to update it still. We actually have a modern day debate mug, so you should check that out at the Indiegogo link, and you can see that perk as well. So that's another option you have that's not even showing on screen, but the embossed postcard is the next one up. A popular one, I'm excited that people have found it useful. The modern day debate t-shirt you can see is the next tier or perk. And so I love the modern day debate t-shirt. I've got one myself. And then modern day debate hoodie is the next tier up. And then Zoom chat with James is the next tier. So in other words, if you want to do an interview or you want to do, let's say, a friendly little debate, it would be, only an hour. So it's kind of a mini debate, but that's something that you could upload on your own channel or something like that. I'm pretty easygoing about what that's used for. If you want to know, how do we make the show of Modern Day Debate? Like, what software do we use and how do we do the tech stuff? Because it's actually almost all free software. OBS is free. And then the other types of softwares that we used in conjunction with it, most of which are free. And then meet and greet with the guests, the most epic tier, folks. That's the final tier that you see in the bottom right. Or at the very bottom of the page. That's where 20 minutes prior to the show, you can come on, just get to, it's like a friendly kind of thing. We don't want people, I don't think anybody would start a debate with one of the guests, but just so everybody's on the same page, just be like a friendly meet and greet where you can get to say, and then I'll be there as well with the speakers, Dr. Kenny Rhodes and Matt Dillahunty. So folks, really excited about those new perks. And so want to say hi to you though and say thank you so much for all of your support. You guys, I am thrilled about the future. And so thank you guys for all of your support. It really does mean a lot. And so we want to let you know, folks, as I had mentioned, if you hadn't already heard, folks, it doesn't matter if you are Christian, atheist, black, white, trans, you name it, folks. Republican, Democrat, I'm trying to think of all the different groups. But folks, we hope you feel welcome. We really do. And so this is a melting pot of different people here. And so we really are glad that you're here, no matter what your background or you could say belief system is, all that. We really do appreciate you hanging out here. And so saying hi to people in the chat. I'm catching up. I'm almost there. Give me a moment. Oliver Catwell, thanks so much for your positive. I love your positivity. That is super encouraging. Says, that was an awesome debate. I agree. A really fun dialogue. And you guys, we can't thank the guests enough. They are the lifeblood of the channel. So I want to encourage you in the description box as well. Their links are at the very top of the description box. And that includes if you're listening to Modern Day Debate via podcast. Folks, you can get to our guest links that way as well. And so we hope you give them a friendly hello, as we really do appreciate them. And then Dave Langer says, I really hope you can get Stu and David have that morality debate. That would be awesome. I think David, they might do it on David's podcast. So that would be an epic one indeed, because I feel like they do have a great, what's the word I'm looking for? Chemistry. Like they're pleasant together. It was a really fun one for me tonight to just get to be here and listen. And so it is also always great that they're professional, and I could go on and on about how much we appreciate these guys, because if it's a dumpster fire and I have to constantly jump in to moderate, that's where I'm like, I don't really get to enjoy it as much. But this tonight was just phenomenal. So anyway, Platinum says, join the official Modern Day Debate Discord. And I say it as well. Please do join the official Modern Day Debate Discord. And also, while you're there, please, by the way, that's linked in the description. And then I'm going to throw it up at the top of the chat right now as well. So I want to let you know, if you are able to get into the old Discord, want to encourage you, say hi to Let's Farm, aka Larry Let's, as well as Platium and MathPig, who have done a phenomenal job of building the Discord. In fact, I can't overstate how much they've done, because I'm embarrassed to say I'm trying to learn Discord this summer. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a boomer. I don't know. But believe me, I'll get there, folks. So given that I have not been in there, it is all them. They deserve all the credit, and we appreciate them so much. And so Second Horizon, good to see you, as well as Samuel Doolittle. Thanks for coming by. And Decatus Moonblade says, thanks, everyone. Thank you, Decatus. And thank you for coming by. We're glad you're here. And yeah, a lot of people maybe seeing for the first time. Let me know if there are any people who are new here for the first time. We really do appreciate you just coming by for the first time, and we hope it's fun. And so I also see Grumler, good to see you again. And Jane Casper, thanks for being here. As well as, is it pronounced Tasha or is it Tisha Thomas? Let me know. But Hinkerhill Ingrisol, thank you for coming by. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And let me know, for real, folks, if I ever don't pronounce it right, let me know if I mispronounce your name. As well as the Twitch chat. Good to see you. Thanks, Ozian, for your kind words. Says, James is looking pretty good for being a boomer. Bless your heart. I will pay you the $20 I promised that I would pay you once I see you next time. And so thanks for that. Ozian, let's see. Viz Metal, thanks for coming by as well. Says, no way he's a boomer. I think technically the internet slang way that's used, like if you're over 30, you're a boomer. So I mean, like, hey, I'm a boomer, I guess. That's the way they define it. I don't know. What are you gonna do, folks? But Ms. Metal, good to see you, and so thank you so much. Tapatzel, good to see you as well in the old Twitch chat, and Move 37, and that's right, yes. Folks, if you didn't know, we're pumped that we do have Twitch, and so if you're like, hey man, I'm cool with YouTube, I'm down with it, I got nothing against it, I want to mention that we also have Twitch, which I'm going to throw that into the old live chat as well, and so on YouTube, so that if you want to, what's the word I'm looking for? If you want to meander over there, you can click on that link that I just threw in the YouTube chat, and then you can find us there and Twitch and follow us, because hey, we're happy to have you watching, whether it be YouTube or Twitch. We appreciate you hanging. And Brooke Chavez says, everyone please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also head over to Twitch and give Modern Day Debate a follow. Thanks for your support, Brooke. Seriously, that really does mean a lot. That honestly is encouraging to have just a culture here that you guys are just phenomenal. Thank you for being so positive and supportive. And so Nephilim Free says, open mic after show on my channel. Ooh, juicy. And we also just booked a debate. That's right. Dr. Wilson is a newcomer. We're excited to host him. He is excited to take on Nephilim Free on Evolution on Trial. You guys don't want to miss that. That's going to be a fun one. And that's coming up, I think, in a week. So let me know if am I right about that, Neph? Is my memory right? Doth my mind deceive me? But Charles Darwin, good to see you. And B Badass, good to see you again, as well as Always Looking at Self. Glad you made it. Thanks for coming by. Pastor John, glad you're here. Raw Nakedness says, I'm a beta. She is. But we still are happy she's here. Veej Price, good to see you again. It's been a while. And Sandy Pigeon, glad you're here again. Chuck Pike, thanks for coming by. And Benny, as well as Trisha Cassidy, thanks for dropping in. We're glad you're with us. And Philosopher Tiger, we're glad you're here as well. Let's see. I'm Perfect One, good to see you. I'm going to try to jump to Lightspeed in the old live chat because it's moving fast. Fish Frog Dolphin, good to see you. Says, that was such a great discussion. I agree. I really enjoyed it. And so we can't thank these guys enough. We really do appreciate them. And so said, James, have you thought about doing a debate on the recent UFO images released by the U.S. military? PsyOps, human tech, time-traveling aliens? No. Let me Google this. UFO images. Oh, are you talking about like in April when that happened? Like, let's see. U.S. Navy confirms UFO images are genuine. I think I remember this happening. Didn't they release some juicy stuff last spring too? It was like, I think it was about a year ago. I thought they released some juicy stuff in addition, or I should say originally. And yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm open to it. If you know of any people who are really big on debating UFOs, I'm cool with that. I'm open-minded. We're willing to do it. We host the old Bigfoot topic, so we're open to pretty much anything. But thank you. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's like a lot of people say they're open-minded and tolerant. And it's like, hey, good. But do you host Bigfoot debates? So we take our open-mindedness seriously. B Badass says, another good debate, James. Thanks so much for your kind words. Said, great stream, bud. I appreciate the guests are great. So passing the street cred on to them. And thanks, Michael Howard, for being here. And GKB forever. Thanks for having stopped by. Thanks, I see you there. David C. Smalley, thanks for coming by. Said that was fun. I couldn't agree more. Really fun. And also Club aka Caleb, thanks for coming by. We're glad you made it. And Reswood of Gore said, yes, nasty guy, always talking about twerking, but we're glad you're here anyway. And then, let's see, I'm catching up. I'm almost there. Thanks for your super chat, David C. Smalley. I just saw it. They said, I think David C. Smalley won by 3 points. He was my favorite. That's funny. Thank you for that support. And let's see, I'm looking for, did anybody mention that if they happen to be, let's see. Thanks for your support. Hannah Anderson said, Kenny Rose is a wonderful guy. Y'all will really like him. I'm excited. He seems like a really pleasant fellow. So that is just really cool. And Be Badass has another, thanks for your kind words, Be Badass. And Hinkershill Ingersoll says whale equals Jimmy. I don't know what that means. Me, Jimmy? Because I used to go by Jimmy. But Spicy Road says, James, do you ever want to answer a question in the debate rather than a sidestep? Do you ever want... do I ever want an answer to a question in the debate rather than a sidestep? Yeah, that's something that, frankly, I should probably do. Some debaters handle it well, where they'll kind of press the person. And some people are probably new, and they're kind of like, the moderator doesn't press very much, because we are pretty... I don't like to be super involved as a mod, because I think it's more fun and organic when I am involved as like little as possible. And so, long story short, like I'm actually... I notice it sometimes when I'm kind of like, that didn't answer the question at all. but I usually, the other debater will call it out. And it's also, you have to wonder sometimes whether or not it's like purposeful or on accident that they missed the question, in terms of like, well, did they just attention slip, or are they just not wanting to answer the question? But Oliver Catwall says it's going to be the Speedo thing again. Is it? It may be, folks. We may have to do the good old, what is it called? We might have to say T-Jump and Steven Steen, get those Speedos on. We're going to have to go do a car wash for the fundraising. Stretch Kitty 21, thanks for coming by. We are glad that you are here. And Sunday Worship, good to see you. As well as Exposing Ma's Tricks. Thanks for coming by. Good to see you again. And Jane Casper, thanks for your kind words. It's so proud of the progress, James. It's all thanks to you guys. You guys make it fun, and you guys make it epic. And I'm so pumped, though, about the future. We've got a lot of fun new ideas, new topics, new faces. We're planning on keeping this fresh and doing a lot of new stuff. So thanks for your kind support. Grumler, who said, support James. Thank you, Grumler, for your support. That means a lot. And then Eric Nelson says, Alpha James, I will pay you the $5 that I told you I'd pay you to say that later. And Caleb says, our reptilians welcome. That's right. We are so open to lizard people. It's not even funny. And let's see. Spicy Road says, you're not a boomer. Thank you. Bless your heart. Hannah Anderson says, no, James, you have been in there before. In where? Oh, the Discord. I have been in there before. I like it. I struggle with it. So I try to like make my way through it to figure out what's going on. But it's not an easy trick. You guys are young and hip. You guys just kind of catch on to it fast. And, well, I do want to show in a moment. I want to say hi to more people, but I also want to share about the upcoming debates. So want to say hi to a few more people first. And Hacks, good to see you again, as well as Sandy Pigeon and Wilk Zach 90. Thanks for coming by, as well as Michael Howard. And I'm trying to think of... Let's see, Dave Langer, good to see you, says, yes, they're releasing more and more UFO stuff now. That's pretty juicy, pretty fun stuff. And that's a good idea, that theoretically, if there is something that would shock the public, you'd want to do it like little bits, like a faucet, where you let a little bit out at a time, so you like gradually change their beliefs. And thus they would be like less likely to react strongly, because they're kind of like, well, you've been given like a little pinches of information here and there over, let's say, years or something. I don't know, but that's my conspiracy theory. Dave Langer said, you should host Marvel versus DC. I'm open to it. That'd be a juicy one. And B Badass says, 1,552, almost there. We are excited about that. So you guys, it's seriously, it's something that I'm pumped about, is that, wow, thank you so much. We just had another backer. So now it just jumped up to 1608. So thanks so much for your support from that new backer, as that's super encouraging, as that's over $50. So that's a really big contribution that we appreciate 100%. And so let me see if I can actually get this to update on screen, as we are able actually to update the fundraising little needle there, and you can see it there on the far right of your screen. It has gone up just a bit to that 1608. So we are excited, folks. That's 45%. If it's hard to see from far away, is that we are at 45%, and believe me, we are absolutely determined and excited. We are going to make it, folks. And so thanks so much for all of your support through that. And like I said, I mean, it's like if you've never been a part of a crowdfund, you guys might be surprised. I don't know if you know this. I am not a comic book person per se. I think comics are cool, like the ideas and the stories and the archetypes and things like that. But I don't like read comics. However, I did. This is actually a comic because I don't know if you guys know that on Indiegogo and Kickstarter, these, which are basically the same thing, they just have different branding. But it's like virtually identical in terms of the idea of what they do. Very similar. I actually did take part in a crowdfund for another project that was on there. And so this came in the mail just like a week ago. And so I am excited about that, as I'm like, oh, it's fun. And it's something that, like I said, folks, it's a cool thing that you can be a part of something that, like, kind of making this kind of cool project that somebody comes up like with as an idea, and just for as little as like $3. I mean, that's pretty cool. And so that's something that if you haven't done it yet, I would say, hey, it's kind of like a new life experience in a small way. And so anyway, tremendous. But Reswat of Gore says, maybe you could sell MDD branded Usman baby oil for hot bodies. That's very funny. Usman, you spelled his name right. Good job. I don't know if anybody has heard of the Usman story, but our dear friend Usman, we hope he's doing well. I don't know if he watches. I don't know. He could be. I put this, sometimes the stream goes on when we live stream. Sometimes it goes on my Facebook wall, in which case, Usman, if you're listening, we hope you're well. But Victor Hallock says, do you have a favorite debate that you've done so far? Man, I did love the Michael Shermer. The last crowdfund we did, like for real, that was one. I love anything that talks about psychology, because that's my main specialty in terms of like what I'm getting my PhD in. So anything that talks about psychology studies, and Michael Jones had brought a lot of studies within the domain of psychology, which for me, I'm always like, I get a kick out of getting to like listen and kind of like sift through what the debater is saying. And sometimes I can tell that they know what they're talking about, and sometimes I'll always be neutral, so I'll never say who, but sometimes I can tell I'm like, I think they're new to like they're just learning, but you know, I can't take sides, so I let the other debater call them out. But so yeah, anyway, anything that has to do with psychology, I actually enjoy a lot. You could tell I enjoyed that controversial topic that we hosted the other day. I was much more involved in that debate because not only because it was more of like a dialogue, there wasn't too much disagreement, there's a lot of agreement, but also I got a kick out of the juicy controversial topic. I'm not for it, but you have to, it is interesting, this idea that, as Nama was saying, and I think she's really intelligent, she's read a lot about this, and she's like, no, there is like, she's not INCEL herself, but she thinks that it's a, you know, kind of you could say a real problem in society. And so long story short, those I enjoy. Buddy Gordy, thanks for your kind words. Said, great job moderating, James. Thanks for your kind words. And thank you, buddy. Oh, you're funny. And then let's see. Victor, there's B Bada says, it doesn't answer the question. You could always maybe ask to elaborate more. That's true. And we've been doing that more lately, where I'll sometimes say, do you want to say more? I think you had seen that in the last debate with MC Toon and Ryan. That was a nice debate too. I really enjoyed that. Brooke Chavez, good to see you. She said, we need merch that says nasty. That's right. We do, as well as juicy. You guys, I love this t-shirt. I was so encouraged. This is like maybe my favorite t-shirt. I've got to get it in the modern day debate font and start putting it on Teespring. Someone sent this to me and I appreciated it so much. This is one of my favorite t-shirts, folks. 100%. And so, yes, so many juicy debates coming up we're excited about. And that is true, though. We do have some new topics this month. A lot of them are controversial. Hold on to your butts, folks. There's going to be some controversial ones. Some people are saying, like, hey, will you do this topic? Or, like, if YouTube allows it, we'll do it. So, Wilk Zach90 says, read it as Veal Chuck. Oh, well, Veal Chuck, thank you for letting me know about that. I do appreciate that. And Brian Griffin, good to see you, says, here's a fun debate topic, fake grass versus real grass. That is a juicy topic. And Victor Halleck says, I dare you to show us what's outside your window. Actually, I don't know if you've ever seen that this is not, obviously it's not a solid wall. You could probably put that together. But this is, definitely a sheet that just leads to the back of it, or I should say the front of my sweet desk, you guys. Check that out. So you can see the desk decorations there. You can see my Thorin, as well as my, I think, what is that, a picture? Oh, it's a picture of my cohort when I first came here to the program. And Jim J, good to see you, says, I'd like to not attack a person, just an idea. We appreciate you wanting to attack the ideas instead of the people, so that is encouraging. We do appreciate that. And then B Badass says, we got 1608 now. Sweet. I am in full agreement. That is sweet. So thank you so much to the person. I'd always want it for confidentiality reasons. I think Indiegogo and Kickstarter also tell the project people, like, don't say the names of the people, like, keep it confidential. So I don't want to say your name, but I do want to say thank you to the person who joined in during this debate in terms of the Indiegogo project. And yeah, I mean, I'm pumped though that we're pretty close to 50% of the way, which is cool. I'm pumped about that. And so, and one thing I noticed last time is that, Stretch Kitty 21, glad you're here, as well as, is there anyone I didn't get to say hi to? Let me know. I do want to say hi to you, and just to let you know we appreciate you being here. And said, you pronounced it perfectly, James. I love your channel. Thanks so much for your kind words. I heard Virchuk, Wilczak, thank you for your kind support. Flatium says, how come we haven't had a pineapple on pizza debate? Hey, I'm an open-minded guy, like I said. If you want it, maybe. But Victor Halleck said, thanks for the answer, friendo. My pleasure. And Rezwat of Gore says, Usman is doing more than just watching. Nasty guy. There he goes again. Rezwat of Gore is going to jail, the YouTube jail. And B Badass says, Snow White was my favorite zombie. That's so funny. You're familiar with it. Are you familiar with Britain's project that was on Kickstarter? But yeah, I am pumped though. And so thank you all so much for your support. I've got to go. I've actually got to move my car pretty soon, so I can't hang as quite as late as I usually do. But I do like getting to just be here with you guys and chill after the debates. I'm like, why haven't we always done this? I think we only started it like, what was it, about 6 months ago. And so I am glad about that. And then let me tell you about upcoming debates. Now's a great chance. So in particular, Monday, you guys have already seen it. Let me show you this. On Monday, folks, T-Jump and Demon Mama will be debating. That's going to be epic. That's on whether or not evil ideas should be deplatformed or debated. So that will be a fun clash. Vegan Gains will be here on Tuesday. I'm looking at the calendar. Vegan Gains will be taking on Philip on whether or not veganism is a moral obligation. So I'm pumped about that. And then I'm also pumped about Dr. Ben Burgess will be taking on Dr. Michael Humer. I'm excited. This is another like new topics and stuff and new faces. Dr. Michael Humer, we've had on once before actually, but pumped. I didn't get to moderate though when he was there, so I'm pumped to do it this time. They'll be debating on whether or not taxation is theft. So that'll be a cool new topic. Then this coming Friday, the 21st, pantheist versus atheist versus Christian versus pagan. So it's going to be a panel of 4 people, and you're going to do like some friendly challenges to each other, but it's going to be a little bit more dialogue and not as like pressing into. So it's kind of changing up the format and the tempo. So I'm really excited about that, folks. You don't want to miss that. And I want to let you know who the people are. Jennifer is a pantheist, and then William J. Peter is a Christian. Kay Fellows is a pagan. A lot of people don't know that. Jenna Belk is an atheist. So Jenna Belk, you've probably seen on like the Atheist Experience. So that will be really fun. I am pumped for that. And also, Neff versus Dr. Wilson on whether or not, or on evolution on trial. That'll be on the 22nd, a week from now. We might do one on whether or not critical race theory should be taught in school. Ooh, that's going to be juicy and controversial. That's supposed to be this month, but it's still being confirmed. Then we might get Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum back for a debate with Erica. That would be really cool on Bigfoot. So yeah, that would be epic. We're excited for it. And it's just, we've got to wait to hear back. Then on Saturday the 29th, you guys don't want to miss this. We're hoping to do a 12-hour debate stream where basically it'll be a fundraiser for the crowd fund for Matt Dillahunty and Dr. Kenny Rose for that epic Indiegogo crowd fund that we're doing, is where it'd be 12 hours. So we would start in the morning, maybe with a veganism debate. We're still kind of hammering out like who would be debating. And then also a debate maybe on the Shroud of Turin. We're still confirming that. As well as a debate on Black Lives Matter. Super controversial. And then also a debate that you guys, it will shake the foundations of the, it's going to be epic. Let me just tell you that the debate at the end of the 12-hour stream will be unreal. So pumped about that. We might have a debate on whether or not the Quran contradicts modern science. That's at the end of the month. We're hoping that happens. We've got a ton of, I'm just pumped about that. So thank you guys for all of your support. We hope that this channel is of value to you, and let us know if you're like, hey, you can make it better this way. We do appreciate that feedback, as you guys have phenomenal ideas, and for real, I'm just a guy in the background shooting emails. You know, that's all I'm doing, and so we just appreciate it. The debaters and you guys make this channel epic and fun, and so thank you for that. You guys make it fun and positive. You guys put wind in my sails. I'm excited about the future. I'm dead serious, you guys. I am so excited, and so I'm in this. I'm strapped in. Like, I plan on doing this channel the rest of my life, for real. And you know, like sometimes the tempo changes where it's like, oh, they only had one debate that whole week. Like sometimes we do that, but we probably average 3 a week, and this summer we're probably going to average 4 or 5 a week. So Wilkzak says you pronounced it. Oh, gotcha. I'm behind on the chat. I'm going to try to catch up. Sideshow Nav has words on pineapple being on pizza. And Mind Onion says, hi, James. Thanks for making it, Mind Onion. We do appreciate that. And then Wilkzak90 says, only betas don't hit the like button. So yeah, please do hit that like button if you enjoyed this stream, folks. If you had a fun time here on this lovely Saturday night, which we hope you did. And Marky O, good to see you here again. Thanks for coming by. And it was a great debate, to answer your question, Marky O. People, a lot of positive feedback, so that's encouraging. And D-Man Jones, thanks for coming by. We're glad you're here as well. Mr. Lightning20, glad you came by too. Dave Langer says, who's taking what side in that T-Jump debate? T-Jump says you should debate the controversial issues. Demon Mama says that in some cases there are some that you should not debate. And Hacks says, take care, James. Thanks for the debate mods and guests and audience. Thanks, and Hacks, for your positivity and your support. And we are trying to, like, you guys are doing a great job. So many of you do a great job of being so positive. And we're trying to work on, you guys, you're already doing a great job in Hacks. And a lot of others here are doing a phenomenal job of being positive. So we're trying to, you know, kind of bring in a more positive, optimistic culture here at the channel. Very true. And also, we had talked about attacking the arguments rather than the person, that type of stuff. We are reforming and improving, refining the modern day debate culture. And then B Badass says, can you catch you on the flip side, James? Going to bed early. It's my birthday tomorrow. Oh, well, happy early birthday. Good for you. I'm excited for you. And so, almost caught up. Rosewood, of course, says, which power would you choose, invisibility or mind reading? I don't know if this is sexually related, this question, but I will tell you that I would prefer, oh, it's pretty tough. I mean, mind reading is maybe, it seems almost like the ultimate. Like, that's a pretty big one, and it's very practical. You could use it all the time. I don't know, would I be able to turn the mind reading off? Because I don't always want to hear your guys' thoughts. Nasty guys like Reservoir of Gore. But Louis Preciado says, sorry, sad I missed this one. Hi, James. Glad you made it late. Better late than never, Louis. And Canadian Catholic says, hi, Modern Day Debate. Thanks for coming by. We're glad you're here. And so, Brandon, let's see, where did I see you? Brandon Widener. Am I pronouncing it right? Let me know. We're glad you're here, Brandon. We hope you're doing well. Henry Hansen, pumped you came by. As well as Spicy Roads and Eric Nelson, thanks for coming by. So thanks, everybody, for all your support and your love. Seriously, I'm excited about the future. It's going to be epic. Things are just going to keep getting better. And so thank you guys for making it epic. And, folks, if you didn't hear it during the intermission, Modern Day Debate is available on podcast. So, hey, if you have your phone right now, and I know a lot of you guys actually have your phone because a lot of you are listening via phone, want to let you know you can pull up your favorite podcast app right now, like I just did on my phone. I use Podcast Addict, and then you can search Modern Day Debate. Right now, go ahead, pull out your phone. What are you waiting for? Modern Day Debate. Don't make me do this alone. You type it in, you find it, you can click it, you can hit subscribe. And so I've had a ton of positive feedback, which is encouraging. That some people are saying, oh, I love it. I listen to it while I'm working out, while I'm taking a walk, while I'm cleaning the house, while I'm cooking. All sorts of uses for the Modern Day Debate debates that are available on our Modern Day Debate podcast. And so we're excited about that and want to let you know, like, folks, hey, totally check it out. So that is something that I'm really excited about, is that it's useful. And you can see on the far right of your screen, those are just some of the podcast apps we're on. We're available on virtually everything podcast wise. So we do want to encourage you to check that out. You see Spotify there. You see also Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon Music, iTunes, Pandora, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, you name it, folks, we're on it. I've worked really hard to make sure we're available in every podcast app. And so we hope that is focus, or hope that's valuable for you. And if you haven't already, maybe you're like, oh yeah, like I've subscribed, but have you left a rating? That helps us. We do appreciate when people leave us ratings. And so thanks for supporting us that way as well. Justin H., glad you made it, said, how's the fund for the Matt Dillahunty debate coming? Thanks so much for making it. We are glad you are asking. And here, let me show you why. On the far right side of your screen, you can see Justin H. Only 20 days left, but we are excited that we just had a new person jump on the crowdfund during the stream. So thank you so much to the individual who did that. And we have jumped up to 1608. So we're doing really well. I'm just really encouraged that it is going phenomenally well. We're at 45%. And we are not quite 45% of the way there in terms of how many days that have elapsed. I think we're at about 10. So yeah, we're excited. And folks, we believe that this is, believe me, it's not a belief. Like, I'm determined. I'm crazy, folks. Like I said, I don't know if I have to do a car wash in May with, who knows, T-jump in a Speedo. I mean, you never know. I don't care if I have to do that. We're crazy. We're going to make this goal. And so it's going to be epic. So it is going to be Matt Dillahunty and Dr. Kenny Rhodes. So you don't want to miss it. And then let's see. What have we got? Canadian Catholics says, James, will we have Darth Dawkins again? I'm open to it. If Converse wants to host him, I'll host him. I'm open to it, but I don't think he wants me to host him. But that's okay. I got no hard feelings. And yeah, please do let us know, folks. I do want to let you know, if this crowdfund strategy is successful, which we believe it will be. We've already successfully done it. You guys have seen it in January. We outdid our actual goal. So I'm pumped. We can do it, and we're going to do it. And as this strategy, I want to let you know, for this crowdfund strategy, the more success we have with it, and the more we can say, like, all right, let's go for bigger speakers. We'll bump it up maybe 1,000 more, and we'll have more subscribers, because as we have more events, especially these big headliner events, like this next one with Matt Dillahunty and Dr. Kenny Rhodes, that's going to bring in new subscribers and more people that'll help pitch into the crowdfund. And eventually, the goal, you guys, I'm very serious, like, let me know who your wish list is in terms of people you'd love to see debate on Modern Day Debate. Our goal really is, like, someday to have, like Bill Nye the Science Guy, or Ken Ham, or Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins. Like, I'm very serious. And that's something with this crowdfund strategy. If the strategy keeps working well, and I believe it will, we've already done it successfully in January, we'll be able to have those people. So folks, I want to see, even if you're not even into this debate that much, you're like, oh, this topic of, is there good evidence for God? I'm not even really that into it. I don't care if this debate happens. I want to let you know, like, throw a few dollars in anyways, like $3. It's the price of coffee. Because if this Kickstarter event strategy is working well, and it keeps on growing and it keeps on building, well, the cool thing is that, well, hey, folks, I mean, think about it this way. I mean, we could use that, like I said, for all sorts of guests in the future that you might want to see and that you'd be excited to see. And so I want to let you know, like, let me know who you would like to see on Modern Day Debate in the live chat right now. Reservoir of Gore says Jim Cornette. It'd be really cool to get Jim Cornette. I know who Jim Cornette is. I do listen to a little bit of the Corny Drive-Thru, so I would be open to that if he wanted to. I don't know who he would debate, but it would be a fun one for wrestling fans. And then they say Alex Jones and Jimmy Dore and Louis C.K. and Ken Ham. Those are pretty epic names, no doubt about it. And so that could be a juicy one. And then let's see. Key Gyro says, James, I watched a clip of you laughing with Death unmutes himself on the regular. Oh, that was funny. Yeah, I laughed a lot at that. Justin H, thanks for your support, said, Woot, love to see this. Thank you for your support. That means a lot. And then Grumler says, James, stay as you are, no matter how big you grow. Thanks for your kind words, Grumler. And then also, Mind Onion says, if we want James and T-Jump in Speedo car wash, should we not support them? That's funny. You're a nasty guy. You and Reservoir of Gore would get along. And Reservoir said, do try to get in touch with Micah Hanks if there's demand for more supernatural or Bigfoot alien stuff. I'll write the name down, Micah Hanks. I don't know who that is, but I will try to get around to it. I've got a lot of people that I got to reach out to. And sometimes, believe it or not, yeah, it's like sometimes it's like all day that I'm reaching out, like emailing people. Like I've got a lot of people are trying to connect with. Wilkzak90 says, we want James and T-Jump Mankini car wash. Nasty guy. But yeah, we are excited. So thank you everybody for your support. It really does mean a lot. We do love you guys. We appreciate you guys. So thank you for everything. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. And last, thanks Hannah Anderson for your final support in your final chat. Says, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And hey, you could tell your friends and family to join us here for great debates and discussions on many topics. And that's true, folks. That's a great way of helping the channel, is just sharing the content, like on Facebook or retweeting it on Twitter, because we are on Twitter. Could be whatever we want. We appreciate that. So thanks, everybody. Keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Take care, everybody, and excited to see you Monday.